Speaking of fat slobs after 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, the Godskin Noble is in this big church that looks gorgeous, and he should not be here because he is ugly as fuck. And fun fact, this is where I encounter Melania of all the fucking bosses on my randomizer playthrough. Here you go, you can look at that. There's no way this boss is going to be that hard. Oh, it's just a Sanguine Noble. That's not Sanguine Noble! That's crazy, huh? However, the Godskin Noble is a big old fucking dude with a massive rapier that does shit tons of damage, and he weaponizes his fat, like, actually really well. He's like Choji from Naruto. He can, like, roll around and do fuck tons of damage to you and stun lock you if you're really not careful. He does so much fucking damage, especially in his second phase. He has this, like, rapier attack where he, like, runs you through, and it literally can just straight kill you if you don't have a ton of health. It's a really annoying attack. However, he is kind of slow in his first phase, and if you have enough, and if he doesn't have that much health in his second phase, if you knocked him down quite a bit in his first, it shouldn't be too hard. But honestly, the second phase is the only one you really have to deal with because it kind of gets really annoying. He also has an attack where he like blows his stomach up and like gets you off him. He's pretty hard actually for a mid-game boss. He can be quite difficult, but if you know what you're doing, it won't be that hard, especially if you've done the Godskin duo at this point. One of him is not a big deal. Difficulty is 51 out of 100. Finally, a top 10 best Fromsoftware boss. Notice how they're all harder than the 100th, at least. The Abyss Watchers is such a fantastic boss. It is gorgeous, the music is perfect, the fight itself is perfect. It starts out with the Abyss Watcher, I guess, the one that has a health bar at least, coming and attacking you. It's going to be a normal kind of like greatsword enemy, and honestly, you could probably find one of these just outside if you really want to. It's a normal, pretty much, enemy. However, when he gets to about, I don't know, half health-ish, another one will join the fray and try to attack you. And then another couple seconds later, a third one will join the fray and try to attack him and you and the original one. It's just going to become pretty much a free-for-all. Just keep in mind which one has the health bar. And then it's pretty easily, you can pretty much backstab him pretty fucking easily. It's not that hard at all. However, when it gets to phase 2, that's when the fight gets a little bit more challenging. He buffs all of his attacks in flame, and all of his hitboxes become massive. And it's such a cool fucking fight. He can drag his sword on the ground and leave like a phantom fire hitbox. It's really cool. Just such a fantastic boss. I believe this is my friend Cal's favorite boss in the series, and I don't even blame him. This is a fantastic boss. Difficulty is 52 out of 100. This is going to be kind of a short one, but the Black Knife Assassin, and then in parentheses, Invisible, is actually quite a lot harder than the normal Black Knife Assassin, as he is invisible. However, he is in this little den of water where you kind of see his footsteps, and if you have the specific torch, you can actually kind of make him invisible, or you can like put him to sleep. It's kind of annoying, and this fight actually can be quite a bitch if you don't have the Saint Trina's torch. It's just kind of annoying, but he has the exact same moves, and if you know what you're doing, it's not too bad. But if you don't have the torch, it's kind of a pain in the ass. Difficulty is 52 out of 100. The Blackblood Kindred has fallen off really fucking hard from my original Elden Ring list. I think this might have been like number 7 hardest in Elden Ring in my original list. But I've gotten quite a bit of experience fighting this guy. It's basically just a Valiant Gargoyle, who we will get to later. But he's a little bit easier because holy damage does a lot more to him than the normal Valiant Gargoyle. And it's 1-on-1 instead of 2-on-1. You can kind of manage him pretty well, and you can kind of kite him around a lot of shit, especially the one outside the mausoleum. And if you do massive jumping attacks with like strength weapons, he doesn't stand a fucking chance. However, he hits like a fucking truck, and he has things that lowers your health over time, which can do a fuck ton of damage and can be really dangerous. He is also massive, and he does have a ton of poise. However, the strength weapons will eventually cut him down to size. Difficulty is 52 out of 100. Finally, the final Demon Souls boss. Old King Elantir is a force to be reckoned with in Demon Souls terms. He is the hardest boss in the game, and that's kind of sad considering he's only at 53 in difficulty. Old King Elantir, he has massive fucking wind, like, waves that come out of his sword every time he swipes. And he has the world's largest shockwave, in which I got stuck for like 5 minutes in, as you can see in this clip right here. And he actually does quite a bit of damage, and he doesn't take a whole lot either. I assume it's probably a lot easier if you use a weapon that isn't Demon Branch, but I like to use it for cinematic purposes. He's quite a force to be reckoned with, and he does do a lot of damage, admittedly. Especially with the world's largest fucking AoE, like I mentioned earlier. You're gonna be fucking just chugging grass down like your Snoop Dogg. It's really disgusting how big his AoE is. He also has some like arena-wide dash attacks that remind me of Sirlan, who we will get to later, and I think that Sirlan was actually inspired by this boss quite a bit, actually. I'll get to that later. He also has this really unique attack that like is completely different from any attack in the entire series since, where he will grab you and he'll suck the levels out of you, and it's so fucking cool. I love it. He also has these like angel wings made out of wind, which looks really sick. He has a really cool design, and I'm a big fan of this boss, actually. Difficulty is 53 out of 100. Seat the Scaleless is a big bitch. I really like his music, though, so he gets a pass. Seat the Scaleless here has a big fucking body that doesn't really fit his arena too well. And if you wail on his tail for long enough, and I have confirmed this now, the back tail, for a really long time, you will get the Moonlight Greatsword. It takes a fuck ton of time, but I guess it's worth it, if you want to say that. He does a lot of damage when he just fucking shifts his weight around, and if you're anywhere near him, which you will be, because his arena's tiny, it will do a lot of damage. When the fight first starts, however, you're going to have to break this little glass hourglass behind him. I don't know what it is, and I really don't care to look up the lore for this thing. I don't care about Seath, he's a loser. But then he becomes vulnerable. But if you don't attack it, he'll be invulnerable. And I have done it where I forgot about it entirely and just wailed on him for like 5 minutes and not understood why he wasn't taking damage. You'll spawn near it if you're fighting him the first time, but you'll probably die once or twice, especially if this is your first try. And then you have to walk the 15-mile trek back here through the Crystal Caverns. This boss is just on my shit list, honestly. But once again, his music's pretty cool, so whatever. Difficulty's 53 out of 100. Another short entry here. The fully grown Falling Star Beast is literally just a Falling Star Beast with a lot more room to maneuver, and he has a giant laser attack now, and he seems to be a little bit stronger, and he has a little eyeball on his head. There's a lot of different things, honestly, but I'm just not going to go over them. Fully grown Falling Star Beast is kind of a bitch. He does a lot of damage, and he can knock you right off his little volcano thing or something. Difficulty is 53 out of 100. I'm going to apologize for my original Elden Ring boss ranking. I put Elmer the Briar really fucking low, and I really shouldn't have, because he's actually kind of a piece of shit. He has a lot of range, like a lot of it for his little sword. He has like this fucking like dark magic and like swing it around. It's really crazy. He does a lot of damage, and he doesn't give you a lot of time to heal, and he's in a really small arena. And if you walk into him, I'm pretty sure it does damage. At least that's what his armor set does, so I'm going to assume it works on him too. I don't know if it's true though. Yeah, I don't know why you're even watching me. But he's actually kind of a piece of shit. I guess there's another boss called the Ball-Bearing Hunter, or the Bell-Bearing Hunter. And I have literally never seen this boss in my life. And I don't know how you see it, but I've seen people on YouTube fight it, and I don't know how to get to it. So, that's cool. But Elmer the Briar is basically that guy, but a lot harder. Difficulty is 53 out of 100. Osiris is a unique boss, as he is holding an invisible baby the whole fight. Yeah. He isn't that big of a deal, but I have heard people say that this is the hardest boss in the base game, which is, like, crazy to me, because I'm pretty sure I have, like, never actually died to this boss even once. But I can see how he can be kind of a pain in the ass. First of all, his hitboxes are just weird. Like, sometimes they'll be, like, way bigger than he is, and sometimes, like, he'll ram into you where you really should have been hit, and it just doesn't hurt you. I really don't get how it works. And he has a second phase, too, where he, like, stops using all his magic stuff, and he starts, like, breathing ice all over the place. He gets a little bit more dangerous and starts rushing you down, which can do a lot of damage, and that's where the hitboxes get weird. But overall, he's not the biggest deal in the world, but I can see how he can be kind of a dick. It's just not my kind of dick, I guess.
What did he say?
He's not that bad for me. Difficulty's 54 out of 100. A gorgeous boss that was originally a whole lot lower on this list until I did the randomizer playthrough, where he killed me more than any other boss in the entire game somehow. This guy is usually known as a fucking joke because he has such fantastic music, especially this one part right here. And then he is, like, really fucking easy usually. He doesn't have a lot of health. But for some reason in the randomizer, he killed me 10 times. And that's disgusting. That should not happen. Melania, who's a lot harder, killed me 5 times. Half as many times on a boss that is known as one of the hardest in the series, and I died to 40 sacks 10 times. I don't know why. But anyway, to get on to what he does, he's basically just like Lanciax. I don't know if we got through him already. I think we did. But where he will, like, strike lightning down, like, all over the place on you, like, all the time. Like, if you see a red glow around you, he's about to strike lightning down. Either run the fuck away or dash or roll, I guess. This isn't Bloodborne. And then also, he has a bunch of Deathblight all around, too. And he does a lot of damage. And he has this giant, like, swooping lightning blade attack that's really dangerous. I don't know why I struggled so hard with this in the randomizer. I just did. Difficulty is 54 out of 100. Here's another kind of a short entry. I know we're getting a lot of short entries here, but it's alright. The Dragonkin Soldier of the Lake of Rot is literally just the Dragonkin Soldier from earlier. However, he's in a giant pot of super AIDS, and if you step in it for too long, you start taking damage, like, really, really fast, and it's really not a good thing. This boss is actually kind of annoying, because usually the first time you're going to fight him, you're going to be Scarlet Rotted, and you're not going to win. It doesn't matter, really. But once you respawn, it'll respawn you kind of close and it'll make things a little easier. Before, I believe it didn't. I believe before there wasn't a Stake America and you'd have to respawn at the beginning of the Lake of Rot. But I believe you can respawn closer to him now. And if you press a button, you can fight him on a big surface. But if you really want to, you can fight him on the entire Lake of Rot. And it might make things a little easier if you're already rotted. And you don't have to be confined to the tiniest fucking space known to man. However, it's really annoying getting ticked by Scarlet Rot the entire time while you're trying to fight a boss, and that's what makes this one a lot harder than the other one. Difficulty is 54 out of 100.
A corpse should be left well alone. Oh, I know very well how the secrets beckon so sweetly. Only an honest death will kill you now. Prevent you from your wild curiosity.
A downright gorgeous boss in both ways. Lady Maria of the Astral Clock Tower is a fantastic boss that just barely does not hit my top 25 bosses. She starts out basically like a normal hunter with like 2 dual swords, and she's pretty strong. She has some normal basic attacks. She can be very, very easily parried here, like one of the easiest in the game. If you just shoot her, she's gonna get parried, and you can do a massive ton of damage. However, she can do the same thing to you pretty much, so be careful. When she gets into her second phase, it becomes a little more dangerous. So she starts using blood arts and using blood things, where she can, like, do a giant beam of blood that rails your HP, or a huge wave, and she'll get a lot faster. In her third phase, this is when it gets really dangerous. She pulls a Abyss Watchers, which I guess this came before it, so whatever, and she lights all the blood she's been using on fire, so it does even more damage and has even bigger AoEs. She does tons of damage here. I've never actually died to this boss, to be fair, but I've gotten really lucky, I think, every time, because this boss can be quite a pain in the ass. She's really fast, one of the fastest in the games, and she can be really dangerous. It really feels like you're fighting a really good hunter on the other side of this boss. It's a great boss. Difficulty is 55 out of 100. The Sanctuary Guardian is up next, and he is kind of fast for Dark Souls 1, surprisingly. This was also the first DLC boss I've ever fought in a Dark Souls game. So that's cool, and he looks like a lion scorpion thing. I think he's, like, technically a manticore or something like that, but whatever. He uses a lot of lightning-based attacks that spread out on the floor because the floor is made of water, and that's kind of cool and a pretty smart way to do it. And it does a good amount of damage as well. He He also likes to fly around a lot and shock the floor as well, so he's going to be out of your reach for a lot of the time. But when he's down, he kind of sits there for a second every once in a while, especially when his tail is down. If you know the timing of the tail swipe, you can hit him a good amount of damage for it. He doesn't have a ton of health. In fact, he has kind of a little health, honestly. But he does a fuck ton of damage, so it's going to be like a fast fight, probably. His tail also does toxic damage, so be careful of that. And if you knock it off, you get a weapon. I hear is really good. That someone in my chat always talks about. Difficulty is 55 out of 100. A surprisingly good fight. The Corrupted Monk from Sekiro is going to be probably your last stop before you get to fight Owl and beat the first half of the game. The Corrupted Monk is a big woman with a big Hanya mask, and she has a massive fucking Odaichi, I believe it's called, and she's actually very fast with it. She doesn't take a lot of damage either, and she doesn't fucking care if you hit her. She won't stagger at all. Your best friend here is going to be perfect deflecting everything, because that's probably the only way you're going to get to kill her. You're probably not going to be able to whittle her health down enough, which honestly, if this is Sekiro, that doesn't matter. You probably shouldn't do that for almost any boss anyway. But this one in particular, you're not going to be able to do it. You're going to want to build up her stance bar really fast. This music on this boss also is like surprisingly good. I especially like the part where it goes... Yeah, like that. I was going to make the noise in my mouth, but I decided that'd be a little too cringe. But this is a really fun boss, and I'm very surprised how good it is. Also, in this first one, if you use Divine Confetti, it does more damage as well, because technically it is a spirit enemy, and you can also use Snap Seeds that just hurt her for some reason. So that's cool. If you want to do it and be a bitch about it, you can, I guess. Difficulty is 55 out of 100. Didn't you just do this for boss, Pugzer? Fuck off. This boss is technically a different boss because it's way later in the game, and it's called the True Corrupted Monk. True Corrupted Monk, also known as Priestess Yao, I think it's pronounced, is actually based on an old Japanese folk story called the Yao Bikuni, I believe it's called. And it is about a woman that accidentally gets immortality and begins to hate herself over 800 years after learning that she really doesn't like being alive that long because all of her family members die. Great story. This boss is nearly identical to the first one, only the first phase is the entire first boss. And pretty much it is going to be the exact same thing. You know what to do about it. However, her second phase, she starts summoning a bunch of herself, but you can literally just bypass this phase if you jump on a tree branch above you and just death blow it from above. I don't know how the fuck that happened, but it's a thing, I guess. And apparently, in the first patch of the game, you could do this to all 3 stages somehow. I don't even know how that worked. The third phase, however, it shows her immortality phase, where the centipede bursts out of her chest and it becomes a little bit more dangerous. All of her attacks are a lot faster, and she has this terror attack. I don't know how it works, honestly, and I don't know the tell of it either, honestly. She just, like, spits green, like, dust at you, and you get terrored and instantly die. Which I actually kind of find cool in Sekiro, that if you just get so terrified, you fucking die, which actually feels like it when you have a panic attack in your life, if you didn't know that. You feel like you're about to fucking die, and you can't do a damn thing about it. Have fun. But it's pretty much the exact same fight as the last one, with 3 phases. Pretty much 2 phases. And the second one's just a little bit faster than the first one, so I put it pretty much the same. Only I gave it an extra difficulty point for fun. Difficulty's 56 out of 100. The boss with the record for most kills on me in Dark Souls 2 ever, surprisingly, is the Smelter Demon. I know that doesn't make sense because of how low he is, but he gets vastly easier after you beat him the first time, because after you get it, you get it. This boss is just a vast improvement to Flame Lurker. It's literally just a straight upgrade. I don't care who says anything. This boss is just better. It looks cooler. I just like Smelter Demon. He's a really cool boss. And man, you fucked my ass really hard my first playthrough. Not only does he hit harder than my stepdad after I don't give him a cold beer, he also does flame damage. And when you get to his second phase, his sword does fire damage. And his third phase, if you just get near him, you start getting ticked for flame damage. And it doesn't matter, because you can't do anything about it. You just get hurt by fire damage if you're near him. Even if you're just near him. And he also does this huge fire wave attack. He also can jump up and then straight back down and launch his sword in the ground, where he can actually kind of stall it a little bit if you're near him. So he's just waiting for you to come near him so he can explode the sword. But honestly, I don't even take... Sometimes he does it. Sometimes he doesn't do it. I don't even take the risk. I just let him fucking do it. Just give him the fucking hit if he wants it. I just stay behind, and don't even try to attack him when he has a sword in the ground. However, his attacks are very easily dodged. It just is very punishing. And he doesn't have all that much health. He's kind of tanky, but he's not too bad. But if you know what you're doing, it's not that hard. His attack timings are really easy to dodge. But just don't get hit, because if you do, you're gonna fucking die. Difficulty is 56 out of 100. Not your typical dragon fight here. Sin the Slumbering Dragon has a very unique effect for whenever you hit him, your weapons take like way more damage than usual. So have some repair powder before you come into this fight. He also has these big, like, stupid poison, like, fire attacks that are really fucking annoying. They also break your weapons, because teehee. And he can rush you down really fast with that spear lodged in his chest, and it does a fuck ton of damage. He is not really extremely hard by any means, but his unique effect has the ability to piss you the fuck off and tilt you. So that's a very unique thing that Sin the Slumbering Dragon has. Other than that, he's kind of just a normal dragon, other than he won't stay the fuck still. So you can maybe get 1 or 2 hits in every time he's on the ground, then he's gonna fly right the fuck back up. If you're a magic build, I assume this doesn't matter, but for a melee build, it's fucking annoying. Difficulty is 57 out of 100. I don't care what anyone says, this boss has been a thorn in my side since the very first time I played it. The Rune Sentinels are just 3 fucking lanky assholes that will gang up on you if you jump down, and if you don't want to jump down and fight all 3, you have to fight them on the world's smallest boss arena, on top of this little stone pillar, which their range is so large that it might as well just hit you every time. If you really want to make this fight a little bit easier, you can apply magic to your weapon and it'll do way more damage. It's just a fucking DPS check, but way harder than it needs to be. I really don't like this fight. If you want to fight all 3 at the same time, I don't really think you can win, like, genuinely. They just are so coordinated in their attacks that one will spin at you, one will throw a shield at you, and then one will spit on your mom's grave. I don't know why they're so fucking annoying and so compatible with each other. Once you kill if you kill the first one on the little pillar thing, the second one will take his sweet ass time and jump up too, and do an attack when he jumps up. Then if you have enough damage, you can take out that guy pretty fast, and the third one will do the same thing. But chances are you won't have the damage at this point in the game to do that, so you're going to have to fight 2 and 3 at the same time on top of the pillar. Or you can just jump down at that point, because the first one's already dead. I don't like the Rune Sentinels. Difficulty is 57 out of 100. Tom here, and if you don't know why I call him Tom, go watch my last Elden Ring boss ranking, is kind of a douchebag. He is not the easiest boss in the world, and he actually can do a fuck ton of damage if you're at a distance from him, surprisingly. So if you're close to him, that's honestly the safest place. He does have an attack that hurts you real bad close range, but it's better than the alternative. If you hit Tom's little actual bony limbs, it's not going to do a ton of damage. It does a little more if you hit his anal bead fucking body, and it does even more if you hit his head. He has a bunch of lasers he can shoot out of his head, and he also has this Stars of Darkness attack where he puts his hand on the ground and does 3 waves of dark energy that really hurt. That's the really close range attack, but if you stay down, the third one won't hit you, so that's why I say be close to him as much as possible, and just wail on his fucking head. Usually he'll stagger once or twice a fight, and you can get a free hit in. Holy Damage also does a lot of damage to this guy, and I just don't like this boss that much. It's beautiful, gorgeous, I love it, but I really don't like the mechanics of this fight. Difficulty is 58 out of 100. Welcome to Bloodborne country. Out of the next 25 bosses on this list, 10 of them are Bloodborne entries. So you can see where the majority of Bloodborne bosses are right here. Shadows of Yharnam here used to be actually one of my favorite bosses in Bloodborne. I don't know why, I just really liked it. It's 3 guys, but it's not an overwhelming gank like most 3 boss fights, 3-on-1 boss fights are. One of them is a really close range guy. One of them is kind of a medium range. He does a little bit of long range and a little bit of close range. And then the last one is pretty much all long range. The more you attack these guys, the more dangerous they will get. After one goes down, 2 of them are going to get really strong. And after the second guy goes down, one's going to summon a giant Orochimaru snake. And it's very, very dangerous. They will launch fire at you from a distance, and knowing me, you would think that I would love to just beat up these guys as much as possible, but this one, it doesn't really work. You honestly have to take a few hits and then run away for a while. And then do that again and again and again, and eventually they'll go down. The fire's quite annoying, and the snake, after the 2 are down, is actually really dangerous, but as long as you just, are really agile on your feet for the last one, you should be in good shape. However, they do a fuck ton of damage, actually, and it's right at the end of a super long and my least favorite place in the entirety of Bloodborne. Not that I'm ranking the difficulty based on the run-up to the boss, 'cause I'm not doing that. I just really don't like this boss, honestly. I used to love it, not anymore. Difficulty's 59 out of 100. One of the hardest early game bosses in any Souls game. You can come back here later. Shut up. Everyone, no one did that. Everyone fought him immediately. I'm ranking him based on that. Margit the Fell Omen here is actually a force to be fucking reckoned with in early Elden Ring. This might generally be the second boss you fight. Like, I believe this was like my third or fourth when I first played through, and he fucked me. He is a little easier if you like go out and train for a bit, but he's not like the easiest boss fucking ever. And there's also a shackle that can make this fight pretty easy, but I'm not using it here. Margit the Fell Omen is the fucking king of stalling attacks. People know this boss simply because he just holds the fucking, like, his attacks until you fucking dodge sometimes. Like, the dude just stalls so long, and it catches everybody off guard. He also will throw daggers, which you can kind of just step out of the way of, but they do a little bit of damage, and they will chip you down if you're not careful here, especially if this is early game for you, which it more than likely will be. Around half health, he's going to pull out the big old fucking hammer, and he's going to be a bitch with it. He will fucking launch people with that thing. And he has a massive combo for early game, too. He is definitely a force to be reckoned with early game. I don't think he's the hardest early game boss in the series. We'll get to that. But he's not a fucking easy one. Difficulty's 59 out of 100. Murgo's Wet Nurse is probably a way high for some people, because some people think that this boss is really easy. I just struggle with it quite a bit. This boss is also unique because you don't have like a normal like battle theme. It's just a fucking music box. It just reminds me of Eve. Who the fuck remembers that game? Holy shit. And it's a very unique boss, even from Bloodborne, honestly. It's an invisible thing guarding a baby that is crying the entire time in the background. It's really fucking annoying. She, or I assume it's a she has a lot of swords, and she is not afraid to slice your ass up with them. If you get hit by certain attacks, it does so much fucking damage. In other ones, they'll like stun you into a fuck ton of damage too. One where she just like walks forward and like fucking starts slicing all over the place does a lot of damage too if you get caught by all of them. But that's not really the hardest part about this. The hardest part about this fight is when she gets to about, I don't know, like half health-ish. She'll make the screen entirely black, and she'll summon a clone of herself, and will just do all of her attacks like in tandem with each other. It does so much damage, and it's so hard to dodge. And honestly, I don't know how I did it in this fight. It's just a pain in the ass. It didn't take me too many tries, but it's like a really annoying attack that you know is coming, and you can't really do anything about it when it's coming. You just kind of have to dodge for like the full minute when it happens. I don't dislike this boss, but I definitely don't like it, and I find it decently challenging, surprisingly. Difficulty's 59 out of 100. One of Dark Souls 3's greatest bosses, and the series' greatest bosses, technically the 14th at least, the Dancer of the Boreal Valley is a beautiful boss with a beautiful soundtrack. This is a great boss. You actually feel like you're dancing with this boss when you fight her, which is a really unique feeling in Dark Souls 3 especially. She has two swords, one with fire and one with magic. It's a lot like Pontiff Sullivan, but cooler. We'll get to him, by the way. And a little bit easier than Pontiff Sullivan. I've heard people say this is the hardest boss in the main game, which is just, I don't understand how that makes sense. But some people do think that. But the Dancer here is just a great overall boss. She has one attack that is very, very dangerous and you need to dodge at all costs, was when she puts her sword in the ground for the first time. She's gonna like do this huge spin attack that does way more damage than it should, honestly. And it might just destroy your entire health bar if you don't have fuck tons of vitality like I do. Whenever she puts her sword in the ground, honestly, just get away from her because she does a small AoE. She also does fire attacks in her second phase, which makes things a little bit more hectic. But the entire fight is basically just extremely rhythmic and beautiful. It's just a great fight. Difficulty is 59 out of 100. But Pugzer, why is the Headless Ape easier than the Guardian Ape? Shut up, I'll get to that. The Headless Ape is basically the exact same thing as an earlier boss that is harder, ironically, on the list. We'll get to him in about like 20 entries or so. But it's just the second phase of that boss. However, that second phase is kind of difficult. I'll explain it a little bit here, but I'm going to explain it more when we get to Guardian Ape in like 20 or so entries. The Headless Ape here has basically, it's very unique, I guess. It's a more of a beast boss, which Sekiro doesn't do that well, unfortunately. It's still not bad or anything like that, but it's definitely the weaker side of Sekiro. And you're going to be attacking it and more likely than not, you're going to be actually whittling down the health bar rather than breaking its stance, which is, I don't like that kind of boss in Sekiro, but I guess it's okay. It has very strange attacks. It has very strange movements where, like, jump up. Sometimes it clips to the ceiling, and that's kind of funny. It has one massive attack. If you block it, you can actually get a fuck ton of damage because it kind of stuns it if you get a perfect parry on it. But the most dangerous thing this thing has, in my opinion at least, is when it puts its head back on its body and screams. It can terror you really fast. And I feel like actually it screams a little bit longer than the boss we're going to talk about later. I don't know why, but it could just be me. But the real danger here is when it comes into its second phase, when it summons another one of itself, pretty much. This one's a lot easier, though, and it doesn't scream either. You can kind of just wail on this thing, and it probably won't do much, and you can just kill it. You can also just not worry about it either and keep fighting the actual boss, and if you do, the other ape will just fucking lay down and die if you kill the main boss, which is kind of sad and kind of funny at the same time. But this boss is, weirdly enough, an easier version of an earlier boss, where the earlier boss is just one, and this one is two of them. I don't know how, it's weird to describe. I don't know how to describe it. If you played the game, you know what I mean. Difficulty 60 out of 100. The Four Kings are more than four kings, surprisingly. I don't know how the hell they fucked that one up. But this is like 6 or 7 dudes. But it's a DPS check. The longer it goes on, the more they're going to spawn in. So you're going to have a fuck ton of DPS to take out one after another until you get like... So you don't get like ganked by like 6 at a time. However, they don't do a whole lot of damage, surprisingly. You would think they do, but they just really don't. However, it does do a little bit, and it does build up, surprisingly. And if you don't kill them fast enough, you're going to be in deep shit if you're fighting more than one. One-on-one is very easy, but as soon as the second one comes in, it's very, very hard to manage them, because they do have some range attacks, and they can whittle you down very fast without you even noticing. That is the only thing I realized about this boss that can be kind of difficult. However, it happens more than you'd think, and the run back kind of sucks. And funny enough, this is like my 10th playthrough of Dark Souls 1, and I completely forgot about the ring, the Covenant of Artorias ring, when I came down here, so I just fell down here for like 2 or 3 times and died instantly. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And I'm like, oh, I'm an actual dumbass. And I don't know, it's just a funny story that happened. Difficulty 60 out of 100. Vicar Amelia is a big dog woman, I guess. She is actually kind of a bitch, and she's not the easiest boss, although she comes pretty early in Bloodborne. She has a lot of health, does a lot of damage, and she can heal herself, and that's really fucking annoying. However, she does stagger quite heavily if you have a big weapon, so you can stun her off pretty hard. And also, if you know what you're doing, and if you've played the game before, it gets a lot easier if you know what you're doing. She has this one attack in particular that always catches me off guard, where she slams her fist in the ground and then a huge shockwave comes out and it has a weird phantom range on it. I don't know, just annoying. Also, when she heals, you can also have like a specific item that stops her from healing as well, if you go and search out the entire fucking planet for it. But I usually don't. I just kind of face tank it and just beat the shit out of her the entire time. However, if you want to do something really fun that I like to do here, is I like to slam my hammer into the giant dog's fucking skull, and then it stops her in her tracks pretty well. Is 60 out of 100. Champion Gundyr is another boss that becomes significantly easier once you beat him for your first time. He is literally the exact same boss as the original Iodix Gundyr that we covered like 2.5 hours ago at this point. But he is faster, stronger, and has more moves, and that second phase never triggers. He also likes to rush you down with that giant-ass halberd of his, and he can do so much damage. If he gets in the rhythm of it, he can kick the fuck out of you a lot. It's gonna hurt, and you're gonna be very, very familiar with the fucking underside of his foot, because he's gonna be shoving it in your fucking face so many times. He also has a combo that he can keep you in the air and stun lock you in the air for a little bit. It won't kill you, but it is kind of annoying getting stun locked into the air. He's just an extremely fast boss, and he is not gonna fucking pull any punches against you this time. Difficulty 62 out of 100.
Dear, oh dear. What was it? The hunt? The blood? Or the horrible dream? Oh, it doesn't matter. He'd always comes down to the hunter's helper to clean up after these sorts of messes. Tonight, Gammon joins the hunt.
Gehrman joins the hunt at number 58. Gehrman, unfortunately, is a little bit of a pushover for a final boss. He's still hard, and he can definitely do some massive fucking damage, especially in his third phase. But he's kind of a pushover for a final boss, if you want to count him as the final boss for this game. He is the hardest of the 3 possible final bosses, though, so that's kind of saying something, I suppose. Gehrman's first phase, he staggers really fucking hard with everything he does. Especially with the stake driver. Don't ask why I'm using it. I just fucking love the stake driver. He staggers so fucking hard every single hit, and it's not a big deal. When he gets to his second phase, it's a little bit more dangerous, and he likes to parry you a lot. But the real challenge here is his third phase, when he does these things where he, like, jumps in the air and then does a massive wind blast onto the ground. And I can never tell the hitbox of it, because I just randomly get hit by it sometimes, and I don't know what the fuck's going on. When he gets to that third phase, though, that's when he becomes actually dangerous, and that's when he deserves this spot, honestly. Because he is so fucking fast, and you can, like, sometimes you won't even see him, he'll just blitz the fuck out of you. Honestly, his first 2 phases, he's just a fucking old man. But that third phase, man, holy shit, he becomes dangerous. But the third phase doesn't last too long, and it only lasts a third of his health bar, so that's why he's not, like, a lot higher. But he is kind of a pain in the ass sometimes. Difficulty 63 out of 100. Yeah, I'm putting Father G above Gehrman. Don't try to fucking talk me out of this. Father G was honestly the first ever boss in, like, any Souls game, even if I didn't realize it was a Souls game at the time, that actually gave me a roadblock hard enough to stop playing the game for a while. I was probably 14 when I discovered Bloodborne, which was my first Souls game, I guess, technically. And this was the first boss that I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm not good enough for this game. I don't think I can beat this. And I came back probably, what, 6 years later, and I finally was able to beat this boss after I beat all the Dark Souls games. However, this boss is still such a fucking bitch to fight so early in the game. This could technically be your first boss you run into in Bloodborne, and he is a fucking monster. I love this boss. First of all, the lore is so fantastic, and I just, the music is so perfect. Tell me that this part of the track does not sound like you are genuinely being hunted by something dangerous. I don't know, it just fits so well. His first phase is pretty much just like an NPC. He's very, very easily parryable, but he does a good amount of damage for how early in the game he is. Second phase, he's a little bit more dangerous, but it's pretty much more of the same. The third phase, I still to this day don't really get how to deal with it that well. You can parry it, but the timing is really strange with it. And I have never fought a boss to this day more than Father G that makes me go to more of a defensive position than his third phase in this fight. I don't know what the fuck to do. I just get fucking scared, and I hope to hit the parry time through pure luck, or I just hope to fucking throw a firebomb at him, or fucking hit very lucky hits on him. He just scares the fuck out of me, and this is after beating every single boss in the entire series, in the entire Fromsoftware catalog, whatever. This guy makes me the most scared when I get to the third phase, because I just don't know what the fuck to do. Difficulty 63 out of 100. Alright, that's the fun part of this boss over. Let's get to it. The Bed of Chaos is a big bitch that I think a lot of people consider to be the absolute worst boss in the entire series. Not because it's so hard that it's just unfun, it's just that it's so hard because it's just unfair. Because there's sometimes you just can't tell where you're going and you'll just be swiped into the little hole and you'll be dead. Also, it's basically just a 3-hit kill. You walk to one side of the room, hit a fucking bug, go to the other side of the room, hit a bug, and then go to the center, hit a bug again, and then it's over. This boss just kind of sucks, and there's a bunch of fire pillars sometimes that can you can just get stuck by him and you can't do a damn thing about it. No one likes this boss, and if you've played Dark Souls 1, you don't like this boss. Difficulty 63 out of 100. A masterful entrance and a masterful arena, and not much else. The Burnt Ivory King here is a decent boss. I don't dislike it, but I don't also like it that much. He's got a cool design, his arena is beautiful, and his entrance is amazing, like I said, but he's kind of just like a really buff knight boss. He is pretty average, he's really fast, I'll give him that, and he can be kind of a dick to you, especially when he buffs his weapon. That's when he becomes really dangerous, and I believe he has the longest range with just a base sword out of, I believe, any other boss in most Fromsoftware games. It's stupid long, and even if it looks like the sword is not there, it's there, because for some reason it has phantom range. I would put this boss a lot higher also if I didn't have to fight 5 billion burnt ivory knights every time I walk into this boss arena. This boss is kind of unique though, as you can get a bunch of other guards to help you and close off the gates to the other burnt ivory knights, so you can fight the boss one-on-one, or if you're lucky, 2-on-1 with you having the 2, if you get all the knights. However, if you don't get all the knights, you're going to get your ass ganked. He isn't too hard, especially if you have 2 people with you, like another knight. It's a lot easier if it can split aggro. But that magic buff does a lot of damage, and that's the only thing I'd look out for. Difficulty 64 out of 100. Don't be fooled by him being a weaker form of a later boss. This guy still is a fucking menace. Mog the Omen, or Mog, I don't fucking know. I think it's Mog, is in this, like, church guarding the frenzied flame, and he is a motherfucker with that trident of his. He will spread blood all over the arena. He'll fucking stab the ground with a massive AoE for some reason, even though it doesn't look like an AoE. And if he pulls it out, it also does damage to you, which I figured out the hard way. And I don't come this way unless I know I can beat him with a decent weapon, because this is kind of a DPS check, honestly. You can beat it normally, but it's gonna fucking drag on hard if you don't have a lot of DPS. He's kind of a douchebag. He also will, like, spread blood all over, and that blood is on fire, because of course it is, I guess. Difficulty is 64 out of 100. We'll get more into this guy when we get to the harder version of him.
Dear brother, I'm on my way. My brother, unyielding sword of Lothric's prince. Rise if you would, for that is our curse.
Strangely enough, only the first set of 2 brothers you're going to fight at the same time in Dark Souls 3. The twin princes of Lothric can actually be kind of a menace if you're not careful. The older prince, I believe, is, like, blind, I think? Or he's got some sort of, like, affliction, I suppose, to where he doesn't speak or anything. He just kind of does whatever his little brother says, which is kind of what I wish I could do to my older brother, but I don't think it works like that. But the first phase, he's just going to be a big dude with a sword who can't use his legs, it would appear, also. So he just kind of teleports around, but don't let all of this, like, fool you. He still hits like a fucking monster truck with that sword, and if you can hit, like, 2 or 3 times without healing, you're probably going to die. He also likes to teleport right on top of you sometimes, which is kind of a pain in the ass. You can pretty much dodge most of his attacks pretty easily. He sometimes, like, kind of, like, stands, quote-unquote, up, and he does this huge light shockwave with the sword, which has some weird range on it, that sometimes it'll hit you even though it doesn't look like it will. But he does a good amount of damage. He doesn't have that much health, though. However, he does have a second phase to where his younger brother gets on his older brother's back. Once again, I wish I could do that to my older brother. Devin, if you're watching this, let me do this to you. And it becomes a little more dangerous. The younger brother is going to be casting light magic all the fuck over his older brother's back. And it's kind of like an Elden Stars situation where it kind of like lazily will float towards you and do some damage that'll just tick your health down a little bit, which doesn't seem like a lot, but every little bit kind of matters in this fight. And it's just basically the same exact fight over again, but with a little bit of light magic thrown in there. However, if you take down the older brother first, the younger brother will try to revive him. So try to take out the younger brother who's on his back. So just keep hitting the older brother's back over and over again. And usually you'll kill the older brother first anyway, but it takes a few seconds for the younger brother to revive him. So you have a good amount of time to be able to try to take him out. However, if you don't do it in time, he's going to do a light shockwave, and you have to redo the whole thing over again. They're not that bad, but they can be really annoying, and the walk-up is kind of a pain in the ass. Difficulty 64 out of 100. An optional boss in Dark Souls 2, however, you need to kill him to get the final ending. Vendrick here has a mechanic that I really hate, and I really wish this wasn't in Dark Souls 2. As the more giants you kill, the more damage you're going to do to Vendrick, as long as you still have their souls. However, in Dark Souls fashion, it gives you souls when you kill the giant. It gives you like a tangible soul you can use. Most people are just gonna immediately use it for the souls it gives, because that's usually what you do when you get a soul that you can actively use from your inventory. But if you do, you have your damage against Vendrick, which makes it a lot harder even if you use one of the 5 souls that you can get. If you only have one giant soul, you're going to do 1/16 of the damage that you would normally do against him. If you have 2 giant souls, you would do 1/8. If you have 3 giant souls, you would do 1/4. If you have 4 giant souls, you will do 1/2. And if you have all 5 giant souls, you will do your normal amount of damage. Usually I just get 4 of them because one of them is kind of a pain in the ass to get. And I just deal with the fact that I'm doing 1/2 damage against Vendrick the whole time. But he has like 3 attacks. You're going to be in this fight for a long time. Even if you have all 5 souls, he has a massive amount of HP. And it's just, you cannot fuck up that much. Because he does, I believe, more damage than most enemies in the entire series with one hit. So although all of his combos are very easy to dodge, don't get cornered by him. Because if you get hit, you're going to be gasping for fucking air. Because he does so much damage. Just don't mess up. That's all I can say about this fight. I know that's easier said than done, but just don't mess up, Forehead. Difficulty 65 out of 100.
Impressive, shinobi of the divine air. You deserve better. Would you not answer to a different lord? Heresy. Heresy, you say? If it is for the sake of preserving Ashina. I will seize any manner of heretical strength. I will endure any burden. Behold the lightning of Tomoe.
I love this boss for a very unique reason. In Sekiro, you can kind of fumble your way through the game up until this point in particular. You either get Sekiro, or you lose to this boss until you give up. Because this boss, although easy once you get the hang of it, is the point where you have to fucking learn how to play Sekiro to beat this boss. You have to learn how to deflect. You can't be dodging anymore like you do in Dark Souls, because I do that up until this boss too. You can't be dodging, you have to deflect, you have to get the posture thing down, you have to get it. If you don't get it, you're not going to beat this boss. This boss is going to test everything you've learned up to this point. You're going to be perfect blocking or parrying, whatever you want to call it. You're going to be using the Makiri counter, and you're going to be jumping over dangerous attacks. If you don't have these things on lock, you probably cannot beat this boss. Also, this also kind of throws in something that you're going to use a lot later, which is the lightning deflection, which actually trivializes the third phase of this boss. The first phase, he's going to be pretty easy. You can just block everything, and he's going to be using the Makiri counter thing a lot, and you can get a lot of posture damage off on him. Second phase, you're going to be jumping over attacks rather than using the Makiri counter, but it's still probably pretty easy. However, whenever you try to heal in this fight, in these 2 phases, he's going to pull out that bow if fucking immediately frame 1 on your stupid ass. And he's going to try to shoot you. And if you don't dodge at the very last second, he's going to hit you while you're healing. When he gets to the third phase, it becomes a lot more fun. And you start going to be using the lightning of Tomoe, which you can deflect if you jump in the air and then reflect it right before you hit the ground. It's going to shock him and do buttloads of fucking posture damage. And it will trivialize the third phase. Also, something I was taught by a mod in my chat. As soon as the third phase opens, get ready to Makiri counter immediately. Because almost every single time he opens the third phase, with something that you can materia counter. And it's great. It breaks like a fucking third of his posture immediately. I love this boss, and it is so close to the top 25, but I can't have the heart to do it because there's just so many better bosses than this. But it is an amazing boss. Difficulty 65 out of 100. This is my second least favorite DPS check in the entire series. My least favorite is in 5 entries, so get ready for that one coming up. Misbegotten Warrior and Crucible Knight are 2 fucking assholes, and I probably would have put this in my top 10 hardest bosses in the series if I had just played Elden Ring the first time recently. Because in my first playthrough, this boss was the bane of my fucking existence. Take the Leonine Misbegotten from earlier, the exact same boss, and then throw in a Crucible Knight about halfway in. If you don't kill that Leonine Misbegotten before that Crucible Knight gets you, you lose. Because it is almost impossible to fight them both at the same time, because their attack patterns don't complement each other at all, and they'll just tear you apart. I hate this fucking boss. There's also a bunch of shit in the arena to just get stuck on, and it's so annoying. I don't like using spirit summons or summoning players to help me, but this boss actually pushed me to do it on my first playthrough on stream, because I just couldn't win. It was that fucking annoying to me. I had to use a spirit summon, because I could not do this. This is just a DPS check, and a very, very annoying one at that. Both of these bosses I hate, especially Crucible Knight, and putting them together is like my fucking kryptonite. This is in my top 10 least favorite bosses in this series, to this day. Difficulty is 65 out of 100. Hey, we made it to the top 50 hardest bosses. Congrats, Blood-Starved Beast. Yeah, I'm well aware that I put this extremely high for a lot of people, but every time I get to this boss in Bloodborne, it's literally just a fucking roadblock for me. I just don't know what to do. Its moves are all weird, and I don't know the parry timing that well, and when it gets to phase 3, you're constantly getting poisoned, which is very, very fun. I'm aware that fire does absolute shit tons to him. This is at the point of Bloodborne right before you have a constant stream of blood vials coming in all the time and plenty of blood echoes to be able to do anything. It's right before then, so this is like where you have to grind for blood vials if you lose this fight. I just really hate that. I just don't get the timing of this guy, and he has really janky, like, fucking hitboxes sometimes. I don't know, this boss is just really hard for me, like, sometimes, and every time I get here, it's a pain in the ass. And fun fact, this last playthrough, this boss had the most deaths in the entire game for me. Over Orphan of Kos. Orphan of Kos had 8, and this had 15! I just can't ever get the hang of Blood-Starved Beast. However, I do realize it is very easy for some people, so that's why I'm putting it at number 50. Difficulty is 65 out of 100. You know him, you love him, Star Scourge Radahn comes in at number 49th hardest boss in the Fromsoftware catalog. However, he comes first in our heart, and 7th on my favorite bosses in the series. This, unfortunately, is another one of those that doesn't have sound on it. However, I can't stand that. I did that for Radahn, so I'm putting his music over it at the very least. Radahn here is so fucking fun, and he is just a top fucking G. Everybody loves Radahn. His first phase is going to consist of you running up to him with either spirit summons or no spirit summons, with him lobbing fucking giant-ass arrows at you the entire time, and sometimes even does the giant rain of arrows, which is my favorite. I can beat this boss alone, however, it just looks a lot cooler in presentation if you have a bunch of spirit summons trying to kill him. I like having this commander standard. It literally looks like I'm leading an army to try to kill Radahn, and it looks really cool. God, I fucking love Star Scourge Radahn. He has a lot of gravity magic, and he's on a little horse named Leonard for some reason. And if you get hit by his sword, it's gonna do fuck tons of damage, so you better be careful of that. If you stay right up on him, you can actually avoid a lot of his attacks, and that kind of sucks for him. And he also used to be a lot harder, but they nerfed him pretty soon after the game came out for some reason. I don't think they should've. But it's Radahn, baby. Everybody loves him. When he gets to his second phase, and this is my favorite part, and a lot of people's favorite part, he jumps up into the sky and he crashes down like a meteor in the coolest entrance to a second phase of any Fromsoftware boss ever. And then he summons a bunch of boulders on his shoulders that for some reason sometimes he likes to launch at you. I don't know what the stipulation of that is, but he will launch them every once in a while, and if they all hit you, you're gonna fucking die. However, I never get upset when I lose to Radahn, like ever, because I'm like, you know what, okay, fine, I just get to fight Radahn again, I guess. Everybody loves Radahn. Difficulty 65 out of 100. Amygdala, I don't know. I'm just gonna say amygdala because that's the part of the brain, and I feel like that's what it's going for, but you might be able to pronounce that a different way in Old English. I don't know. I'm just gonna say amygdala. The amygdala here is not too bad if you have a weapon that can smack its fucking face really easily. However, a lot of weapons don't reach his face, so you're gonna have to be fighting his little legs half the time, and sometimes he likes to rip off his limbs to be able to hit you easier. Why do Fromsoftware bosses do that, by the way? Like, that's a staggering amount of them that do that. And he hits really fucking hard. This was another boss that I actually kind of stopped playing at a long time ago because I couldn't beat it, even though this is optional. He does a lot of damage, and he is kind of annoying. So if you stand under him, you will have the best chance, honestly. However, if you have a really long weapon, once again, you can just smack his face until he dies, and it's pretty easy. But I use the stake driver, so I can't reach 5 feet in front of my face. So I'm stuck hitting his little limbs under his body the entire time. However, I made it work in this clip somehow. However, he is not a pushover, 100% for sure. And he does a lot of damage. However, I don't know what else to say about this boss, because it's really strange how this boss works. Difficulty 66 out of 100. Pontiff Sullivan is a lot of people's favorite boss in Dark Souls 3, and a lot of people think it's one of the hardest too. I think it's up there. It's pretty hard, but I wouldn't say it's amongst the hardest in Dark Souls 3. He is a bastard though. He does a lot of damage, and he is relentless. You can also parry him on his first attack. I didn't in this playthrough, but it's a really fun thing you can do, and you can get a free hit on him that way. Pontiff Sullivan has 2 swords, a fire sword and a magic sword, and he is actually very dexterous with both of them. And he even has an attack that if you look at him the wrong way, it'll break your lock-on from him, which is very unique, but I'm not sure it's supposed to work like that. He's really fast, and he can get from one side of the arena to the other in a fucking heartbeat. When he gets to about half health, he does this little AoE and he sprouts wings for some reason. And then he will eventually spawn a clone of himself that will mirror his exact moves almost right before he does them. I didn't know that the first time, but his clone will do the exact same attack he is about to do, but within like 2 seconds of him. So you're going to get a few seconds to figure out what to do and how to dodge each attack both times. If you want to knock out the clone, you can, but then he becomes really aggressive again, and if the clone's out, the main Pontiff Sullivan is a lot more passive, but you then have to deal with 2 people, so it's pretty much you're going to have to decide what you want to do. Pontiff Sullivan's a good boss, and I do like him, but I wouldn't say he's like an amazing boss by any means. Difficulty 66 out of 100. Hey look, it's my least favorite DPS check in the entire series. The Valiant Gargoyles, I just hate this boss so much. The Valiant Gargoyles, one of them is going to come down immediately, and he's going to be manageable, I guess. He is just a basic normal gargoyle. However, he has this unique thing where he spits poison on the ground that ticks you for damage and poisons you at the exact same time, and he can launch that thing from across the arena. If it were just this one gargoyle, I could forgive this boss for just being kind of like eh. However, about half HP, like normal, a second one will come down. I think this is extremely stupid, because even at like endgame, this is really hard to manage both of them. Even if you have a really strong weapon, it's gonna take a second for you to take out the first gargoyle. And there's a good chance the second one will come and get to you at least in that time. But if you're in the mid game, which is probably where you should be at this point, this is unbelievably hard to do. Because you have to manage both of them. And you're gonna have to fight one of them while the other one's like casting poison at you from across the arena. And they have these like wind-based attacks that can launch at you from across the arena too. So if you don't have an absolute fuck ton of DPS, this boss is going to be a nightmare. And I really, really dislike this boss. Difficulty 66 out of 100. The Fire Giant, who is a lot less cool than my multiverse main. Get fucked, idiot. Is kind of a douchebag, and he sometimes is remembered fondly. Sometimes people like him, sometimes people don't. I'm kind of in the middle. He's got a lot of health and not a lot of fun things to him. It's cool how in his first phase he has that like weak point on his leg that you can clearly see has been like burned or bitten or something. It's some sort of sore. If you knock off the splint, it does extra damage when you hit it, which is pretty cool, I guess. He is a big dude with a big plate, I guess. I don't know. He likes to shove the plate into the ground and make big shockwaves and stuff. He rolls around a lot, which can do fuck tons of damage, and it's kind of scary when you see him start rolling, you gotta fucking back up. The real danger is when he goes to his second phase, when he gets all these fire attacks, like he can shoot fire really fast at you, or he can summon those big, like, fireballs that explode when they get close. Or he can just breathe fire out of his face, stomach thing. He does a lot of damage, and he has a lot of health. However, it's easy to dodge most of his attacks. You just gotta get lucky and not get hit by much. That's pretty much all there is. Difficulty 67 out of 100. You already know what it is. The 4th greatest From Software boss ever, the Soul of Cinder. Man, I have a soft spot for this, as this is the final boss in the Dark Souls 3 trilogy, technically. It is just such a fantastic boss, and it starts out with basically you fighting yourself from Dark Souls 1 in all the playstyles you could have fought. There's one where he does the wood grain ring roll. There's one where he is like a magic caster. There's one where he just uses a straight sword. It's just a fantastic boss. Just this first phase even is just fantastic. When he gets to a second phase, however, that's when it gets really beautiful. As you just saw right there, he turns into Gwyn, pretty much, who we will get to a little bit later. And he turns into basically the first final boss of the first game, where he uses fire on his weapon and he basically embers himself to make himself even stronger. He also has some lightning attacks, and it also brings in the theme from Dark Souls 1 as well, from the Gwyn fight. As you can tell, the music is the exact same. And it is just a beautiful way to cap off the series, and I don't think I know a single person that doesn't like the Soul of Cinder. Some people say he's too easy. I don't think he's that easy at all, honestly. I struggled when I got here the first time. He does get easier the more times you fight him, obviously, as most bosses do. But it's just a fantastic boss, and I don't really think anyone can argue that. Difficulty is 67 out of 100. Here is one of my least favorite bosses in Bloodborne, once again. We're getting a lot of those. Rom the Vacuous Spider. She's just kind of annoying. No one really likes this boss, and it's also a huge pain in the ass and a huge roadblock whenever I get here. Because she's not necessarily the dangerous part about this fight. Her little spider motherfuckers are. There's so many of them. It's like not even worth it to try to kill them all, because as soon as you get to stage 2, she's going to just summon the exact same amount. And they do stack, so that's always very fun. Her phase 1 isn't that bad. She kind of just sits there and lets you wail on her. When you get to stage 2, however, it's a little bit more annoying because she starts launching the spiders into the air for some reason, and they just come crashing down and can one-shot you at this stage in the game for some unbelievable reason. She also has an AoE where she kind of gets on her hind legs, I guess? I don't know what to call it. She hops. It's really strange. And she does fuck tons of damage as well. This entire fight is try not to get one-shot simulator. It's just a pain in the ass, and it's actually really fucking hard, and I hate it. Difficulty 67 out of 100. Out of every single boss in the entire FromSoftware catalog, I think I know the least about this boss, genuinely. Because I didn't know this boss even existed until my last playthrough. I beat the game twice, through 2 different playthroughs, and 2 different times I beat through the DLC. When someone mentioned to me, hey, what do you think of Abritas? I was like, what the fuck is that? Who the hell thought that you could jump through the window? You know what I'm talking about if you've beaten the game and if you've beaten this boss. I didn't know this boss even fucking existed until recently. But Abritas is just a big, disgusting slug monster. And you're gonna have to forgive me if I miss some things about this boss, because like I said, I've only fought it once, believe it or not. And my strategy here was just to stick to her sides, because she likes to slam her head in the ground a shit ton. And then when she gets to about half health, she genuinely starts screeching and spitting and shitting all over the fucking place. And I believe it frenzies you too, if I remember correctly. It didn't happen in this footage, but I think it frenzies you. And also, I believe she also has a massive AoE that also didn't get off in this footage. By the way, have you seen the concept art for this bitch? It's disgusting. So, once again, I apologize. This isn't the best breakdown of this boss, but this is the only boss that's going to be kind of rough for it. Difficulty 69 out of 100. Not ranking this based on the run-up to this boss, because this is genuinely the worst run-up to any boss in any FromSoftware game. And if I did rate it based on that, this would be way higher. This would be in the top 3 probably pretty easily. The run up to this boss, just in case you're wondering, is you have like legitimately like a 3 or 4 mile trek in a completely white snowfield where you can't see anything, while reindeer that are all electrocuted ram into you the entire time, and they have fuck tons of health. This boss is awful. However, the boss itself is like okay, I guess. It's just a reskin of Ava the King's Pet, but it's 2 of them, and they start healing when they get low. That's literally the only difference. If you can knock out the first one in time, the second one is literally the exact same thing. It's not too bad, honestly. But it can be kind of a pain in the ass when they start healing each other, and then you just can't get in a rhythm because they keep healing each other back and forth. It sucks. It's awful. No one likes this boss. Difficulty 69 out of 100. Remember how earlier we fought the Headless Ape, which was just the same boss as this, but like 2 of them? Yeah. And also remember how earlier I said when you fought Kenichiro, you have to get out of the habit of fighting Dark Souls bosses by like dodging and stuff, because you're going to have to block instead. Throw all that out the window. This is literally just a Bloodborne boss, pretty much. And there's another one of those that's a lot harder later on in this list, so this is just a precursor. The Guardian Ape is a big ape with a big sword. That's pretty much it. However, in his first phase, he doesn't have it, and basically you're going to be trying to block most of his stuff, and it won't work too well. At least I can't get the hang of it. And basically, I just whittle his health down little by little like it's Dark Souls, pretty much. I fling around and hope I don't get hit, pretty much. He also has some attacks where he like will jump really high in the sky and land down pretty fast on you. He's kind of annoying. However, I have to give this boss props because this is the only boss that will legitimately fart on you, and that's kind of hot, honestly. He also throws shit at you too, which is great. But the real danger is when he comes to phase 2, which is a jump scare for some reason, after you get the classic, you know, shinobi execution thing on your screen. He comes back to life, or I should say he never really died because he's immortal. He takes off his head, and like I said earlier, if he puts it back on, run the fuck away because he's about to scream and it will terror you. And then he starts using that sword I was talking about. It's a little easier to start blocking and being able to break his posture, but once again, you might be better off just trying to whittle down his health. This boss can be kind of a pain in the ass, and it actually is kind of a struggle. For how early this boss is, it's probably it's pretty early in the game. It's like halfway. It's kind of fucking hard. Difficulty is 70 out of 100. Hey, it's Margit again. Morgott the Omen King is actually kind of a fucking monster. That little stick he would like charge up like the entire time when he was Margit is now a fucking sword that bleeds you, and it does shit tons of damage. He also uses 3 knives that he throws at you instead of 1, and so you are forced to dodge out of the way instead of being able to sidestep it. So that wastes your stamina. He also will use Swords of Revealing Light and make a cross on the arena that you will basically be limited to where you can walk. And if you're in the proximity of this guy, he is going to do massively long combos that just have no end in sight. He does so much damage too, it's not even funny. When he gets to phase 2, he spurts all his Omen Curse all over the arena, and it seemingly does nothing. I don't know what it actually does. I don't know if it actually hurts you if you step in the geysers or something. It doesn't seem like it does, but it starts raining too for some reason. It's cool, I like it. And he starts using blood magic too, like Moog. And it's actually kind of cool he's using his accursed blood to start fighting you because he's serious now, because he really doesn't want you to get to the retreat. I love Morgott. He's probably my favorite voice actor in Elden Ring, and I really hope we get some more lore on him in the DLC that was just announced. I love Morgott, and this is actually the biggest jump in the list because our last boss was 70 out of 100. This is 75 out of 100 in difficulty. Alright, get your pitchforks ready. I don't really care for this boss. I don't hate it, I guess. It's just, like, average, I guess. Knight Artorias, he has really cool lore, but the boss fight does not reflect that very well, honestly. Yeah, it's cool, we know he uses the Abyss. He broke his right arm to save his fucking dog. We get it. I understand. It's a good story, whatever, but the boss isn't that great. He's a little bit too fast for Dark Souls 1. And he also does that Guts thing where he does like the flip, his like Guts' signature move from Berserk. I don't have any good footage of this, but I went into fucking Berserk Muso to get this, so you can enjoy this footage, I guess. He will always do it 1 to 3 times, and he won't let you get up after he hits you the first time. You'll try to get up, bam, again. Try to get up from that second one, bam, again. He's gonna do fuck tons of damage for you. The one saving grace of this fight that makes it not all that impossible is when he tries to buff himself. Don't let him do that. Just run at him. I don't care if you have low health. Run at him and make sure he does not buff himself. Because if he does, he's going to do way too much damage now. But if you knock him out of his buff animation, he will stay normal and not as annoying. He does so much fucking damage, and there's one attack that you can't dodge a specific direction in because it will clip you every single time. And that's a fantastic thing that can happen. He has a massive fucking sword, once again, Guts inspired. And dude does not fucking let up. This is going to be a nuts to butts action fight from start to finish. One of you is going to die real fast. Difficulty is 75 out of 100. Whoever designed this boss is a fucking sadist. This boss is just, like, awful. When you walk in, you're going to be fighting a bunch of fucking rats with Toxic, which, first of all, if you get hit by Toxic, just give up. This fight isn't worth it. Before you can even kill all of them, the big daddy rat comes down and tries to kill you while you're fighting them, and then you're probably gonna get toxic anyway by a random hit from a random ass rat that you didn't get to kill in time. If you can manage to take out all the rats, it's a very, very easy fight. But as soon as that big one comes down, if you don't have all the rats dead, it's pretty much game over. I fought this boss after every single boss in the entire game in this playthrough, and it still railed the fuck out of me like 4 or 5 times. It's just an unfair hard fight, and that's never what you want in these games. Difficulty 75 out of 100. I didn't realize when making this list, but this boss is actually kind of similar to the last one, where there's going to be a bunch of wolves in the arena at the very beginning, and you have to kill them before you start fighting the main boss, who is this NPC douchebag with the lion shield, and then you kind of have to kill the guy with the lion shield before you fight the bigger, like, dog boss, pretty much, which is like the bigger rat boss. It's kind of annoying, and the only reason it's hard is because if they team up on you, it's literally like almost impossible. So in that case, it's kind of really similar to the last one. I didn't even think about that when I made the list. The NPC when you fight him is not too hard. He has like a fucking like Roman soldier sword and this like lion shield that like roars at you when he hits you with it, which is very strange. Also, he likes to jump attack you a lot, which this is an Elden Ring. I don't know why the fuck he's doing that. But he doesn't do too much damage, but you have to kill him very fast, or the big dog is going to come out and rail you, because it's really hard to fight these two at the same time. They have no synergy whatsoever, and you're just going to get ganked pretty much, and you're not going to be able to do a damn thing about it. The dog itself isn't too bad. He has some really cool ice attacks, and he can definitely do a good amount of damage, but he's not too bad. As long as you have these bosses on their own, it's not too bad. But once they get together, this boss is a pain in the fucking ass. And I dislike it when that happens. I don't think anyone really likes this boss. Difficulty 76 out of 100. I'm about to make a very serious claim here. I believe that this boss is the hardest NPC boss in the series, like the player bosses, if you know what I'm saying. Roundtable Knight Vike is a motherfucker. This dude's lightning does so much damage, and when he does that like Ash of War thing where he like jumps really high in the air and then slams down, it takes like 90% of your health bar. He's extremely fast. I'm sure you can parry him, but I just don't. And he does absolutely shit tons of damage. Fitting for the actual, like, character that is on the cover art of Elden Ring, which I didn't know until pretty recently. But yeah, that's Roundtable Knight Vike. Vike was the closest guy to getting to the Erd Tree before you. And then he got really sad, and he didn't want to sacrifice his maiden, so he basically became a Three Fingers wannabe. He doesn't use any of the frenzy stuff in this version of him, but his like NPC invasion I believe does. But this version of him is by far harder, and it's a boss, and once again it's an NPC boss in an Everjail, so he can heal himself, so you have to basically beat him twice. This guy does so much damage. Even at the end of the game, this boss does so much, and I struggled with it really hard. Roundtable Knight Vike is a really dangerous guy, and I think he's fittingly the hardest boss. He is fittingly the hardest NPC boss in the entire series of games here. Because he is on the cover, I guess, and he deserves it. Difficulty 76 out of 100. 1. The parent is absolute. 2. The master is absolute. And 3. Fear is absolute. I finally get to talk about my favorite Sekiro character. Owl is such an amazing fucking character, and I love him. I don't know what it is with like really bad fathers that still kind of like try and are still kind of proud of their son sometimes. Maybe it's because I don't have a great dad. but God, I fucking love Owl. Even when you kill him, he's like, that's my boy. Like, I love Owl so much. And this boss would totally be in my top 25 if not for a very, very amazing later form of this boss later in the game. Great Shinobi Owl is a fucking little trickster just like you are, and he uses a lot of shinobi tools. The thing he likes to use the most, at least in this fight, is he likes to throw this little ball down that prevents you from healing, but if you're a god like I am, I'm not good at this fight, by the way, it doesn't matter, and it gives you a free opportunity to get like 5 hits on him, and it does so much fucking damage. When he finishes a combo, sometimes he's going to do a jump back, and he's going to throw shuriken at you, which you can block. And in this first phase, he's not all that annoying. He's just kind of a dirty little trickster. He also likes to throw firecrackers every once in a while, and if you see him do that, just step backwards immediately. Do like a Dark Souls step, like roll backwards and just get the fuck out of there, because if it hits you, he'll just kill you, because it will stun you, and then he'll get a free follow-up, and it'll just kill you. When he gets to his second phase, I don't have it in this, but the first time you fight him, he's going to grovel at your feet and beg for mercy. And then when you go near him, he's just going to like do like sucker, and he's going to like throw fucking like dirt on the ground and like stun you. He will continue doing that through the rest of the second phase, by the way. So if you ever see him throw dirt in the ground, just fucking get ready to block immediately, because he's going to do a follow-up. And instead of throwing shuriken in the second phase, he's going to throw poison on the ground, which will deny areas for you. And oh god, I love this fucking fight so much. I don't want to put it in the top 25 because his superior version is in the top 25, really high in the top 25. But this boss is like the epitome of fucking Sekiro. God, I love fucking Owl. Difficulty is 76 out of 100.
You taught me well. That's my boy.
Tim is just the exact same boss as Tom from earlier, but he's got a fucking massive health bar, and he has a unique attack that actually admittedly is kind of cool. When he gets really low, he like disappears and like grabs you with like 9 clones of himself. That's kind of cool, but it's literally just a DPS check for late game, and not even a good one. It's like hard, but like not fun hard, because it's literally just the other boss, but like more annoying. Difficulty is 76 out of 100. Black Dragon Calamite is a really well-made boss from Dark Souls 1. This is a dragon boss that, no joke, is faster than I believe every single dragon boss in Elden Ring, a game that came out 11 years after this one did, and it was probably like 10 from the DLC, but whatever. He is an unbelievably fast dragon and a fantastic boss that, just missing the top 25 just barely. He has some extremely fast combos. He can't fly anymore, so they say, because you shot him down with an arrow, but he still likes to sometimes like fly up a little bit and like blow fire under the ground, and just everything he does is really fast. His windups are like instantly, and he can like fucking do tons of damage too. He also has one of my favorite attacks in the series, where he like does this thing where he like looks down at the ground, and then he uses that fucking like weird eye in his head, and it makes you take double damage, and it makes a really cool noise. I don't know why, I just like it a lot. Calamite's just a fantastic dragon boss, and for Dark Souls 1, it's just one of the best in Dark Souls 1. It's a crazy. Difficulty 77 out of 100. Elena, the Squalid Queen, is basically Nashandra, but like way fucking harder. This is a really cool mage boss, actually, surprisingly, and it's actually really fucking hard. Elena has some normal like explosion moves that actually do a fuck ton of damage, or she can like send darkness at you, which is kind of cool. But that's not what makes her hard, because you can easily dodge these things if it was just these things. But she does what you do in Elden Ring, and she uses her little spirit summoning bell, which is her staff in this case, and she summons people. She can summon a fuck ton of skeletons. She can summon a bunch of pigs, which is really rare, which don't do anything. But the thing that really fucks you up is she can summon Velstadt. Remember that boss from earlier? She can summon a whole ass boss to come fight you. This is like a weird mix of Nashandra and Renala, Queen of the Full Moon. But I kind of like it, honestly. It's really hard, surprisingly, too. Difficulty 79 out of 100. Don't unsubscribe. Don't remove the like from the video. Like the video if you haven't, though, by the way. I do not find Midir as hard as a lot of people do. I still think he's an incredibly hard boss, don't get me wrong. However, I don't think he is what people give him. He is a big dragon. He's actually the 3rd hardest dragon in the series, in my opinion. But a lot of people like to put this guy, like, near the top. And we're technically near the top right now, but I mean, like, top 5, top 10 hardest bosses in the series. The first time I fought this boss, It took me 8 tries, which is definitely hard, don't get me wrong, but I have not died to this boss ever since. And I have had a lot of bosses that took me a lot longer than 8 tries. Just stand near his head. I know it's scary to stand near fucking Madeira's head, but just stand near his head, you'll be so much better off. If you try to stand under him, he can do a lot of stuff where he like flips around his arms and legs and stuff and like whips his tail around and can do a ton of damage. But if you stand near his head, he only will do like 3 attacks, which isn't that big of a deal. One, he'll like run at you, which admittedly actually is kind of hard to dodge. He could also blow fire onto the ground, so if you see him stand on his hind legs, just walk backwards and he'll completely miss you. Or he will charge forward and breathe fire at you and then do like a little tailspin, which isn't that hard to deal with. And like we talked about the Pugzer method, if you just run up and to the left when he goes into the air and blows fire down, you'll completely dodge it. He is not all that tough, and he doesn't even really have a full health bar either. He has like 9/10 of a health bar, because he will always stagger when he's really low, and you can just one-shot him to kill him. He's hard, but he's not all that. Difficulty 79 out of 100. Have you guys heard that hesitation is defeat by any chance? If you have, then you've probably struggled with this boss quite a lot. Once again, an extremely hard boss that a lot of people put in the top 10 that I'm not putting in the top 10. I think he is extremely hard, especially for Sekiro. He's in the top 4 for Sekiro, but he's still not like extremely hard, I guess. He actually has 4 phases, but I didn't capture the first phase here because I'm an idiot and forgot to record it. It's just the 3rd phase of Genichiro from earlier. Ishin the Sword Saint has one of my favorite arenas in the entire catalog, and he's kind of actually a fucking monster. His first phase isn't hard at all. It's just like another boss we're going to get to a little bit later. But he basically just has a bunch of combo attacks that are just basic Sekiro combos that you can easily dodge. He also will like stomp the ground sometimes, and then that's your cue to get ready to fucking Makiri counter. And it's just kind of a basic, easy boss. It's very rhythmic. Once again, it's a normal Sekiro boss, and I wouldn't put it that high just for this phase. However, the 2nd phase, or 3rd if you count Inner Genichiro at the beginning, is when this fight gets hard. And ironically, I find the 2nd phase of this fight way harder than the 3rd. He pulls out this spear. I think it's a cross Nagaki, whatever the fuck it's called in Elden Ring. I don't know. It's a big spear. And this thing is just unpredictable as absolute shit. He swings it around, and I feel like I have the timing to block it down, and then I just fucking won't, and he'll just rail me with it. You can Makiri counter the thing when he jumps and tries to do a huge lunge attack at you, and that one's pretty easy to see coming. Actually, that's probably the easiest Makiri counter to see in the entire game to see coming. But it does so much fucking damage if you mess it up, and this fight is so high octane and fast that there's a good chance you won't be ready for him to do it. And when you try to heal, he will be on you like white on fucking rice. And for some reason, he has a modern pistol in a game that's supposed to take place in like the 1500s somehow. He has a semi-automatic pistol that he just shoots at you for some reason. And obviously you gotta block it, and it doesn't do any posture damage when you perfectly block it. So just good luck with the random fucking gat he's gonna pull out. I don't know why he has it. The 3rd phase is when it kind of calms down a little bit. It's a little bit easier. It's the exact same thing as the 2nd phase, only he likes to use the lightning move that Genichiro did. So, and that's such an easy move to counter, and it does so much damage right back at him if you know what you're doing. You can literally just stun lock his 3rd phase if he just decides he wants to keep trying to use lightning on you for some reason, and you can easily beat him down. He is a motherfucker, and he is a gorgeous boss. I love this boss, that's why he's number 18. But he is not as hard as I think some people say he is. Difficulty is 80 out of 100.
Done. Sekiro, farewell.
I think I'm going to change this from a boss ranking to a every boss explained list. You know, with 25 bosses left pretty much at this point. Whatever. Commander Niall here is a son of a bitch, honestly. And he used to be in my top 10 hardest bosses in Elden Ring, and he still might be, honestly. This is it is in the top 10 hardest bosses in Elden Ring. I just checked, actually. But this guy is literally just Commander O'Neill from way earlier, but he's a way harder son of a bitch. He starts out with 2 summons, one with a shield and one with dual swords, and these guys do way too much fucking damage. And they like home onto you like heat-seeking missiles. It's disgusting. The first guy with dual swords is probably going to come after you first because he's so fucking fast and so aggro. You got to kill him like immediately. When you walk into this arena, go and try to kill him as soon as he spawns because he's going to fuck you up. And then try to focus on the shield guy, who is less aggressive but still kind of a pain in the ass. And while this is happening, Commander Njal is going to be buffing them the entire time, making them have extra health, extra damage, so on and so forth. It's really damn annoying. Once you get it down to just Commander Njal, you're probably going to be wasted a few Estus if you're lucky, and it's going to be a little bit harder. He is basically just Commander O'Neill, only he has way more attacks. He does frost damage instead of Scarlet Rot, and he likes to do lightning attacks that for some reason have some range that does not match what the hitbox looks like, and it's a pain in the complete ass. If you see him winding up any sort of frost thing, just step away, because he's going to fucking hit you. It's really annoying, and I don't know what the exact timing is, but he's a pain in the ass. You can also do this where it's pretty rhythmic. You can kind of get in a rhythm of hitting him, honestly. And that's the only reason he's got even a little bit of leeway here. Difficulty is 80 out of 100. If you're wondering if I sounded a little bit different in the Commander Njal thing that you just heard me do, I recorded that earlier today, and I was having a panic attack because I felt so sick when I was recording that. So you can go back and listen to that. Gang Squad is, I believe, one of the only two bosses ever in a Fromsoftware game that made me put down my controller and quit the game for a little bit. The first one was technically Father Gascoigne, which I was like 14. I gave up after like 20 attempts, which 20 attempts nowadays ain't much. But Gang Squad, well, I was well into playing these games and streaming them all. And Gang Squad beat me down so hard so many times, and I felt it was so unfair, and the run-up to it is so frustrating. I literally stopped playing any Fromsoftware game for probably like a year and a half or so, right before Elden Ring came out. I picked all of them back up and finished all the DLCs and stuff before Elden Ring. But Gang Squad is just there to be annoying. But I can't help but kind of have a love-hate relationship with this. It's kind of like an abusive stepdad. I love him because he's like there and caring for me. But like they also beat the shit out of me a lot. I think the arena in this boss is made absolutely perfectly, and that's disgusting to say. You will never hear anyone say that about. You will never hear anyone say anything good about this boss, probably. But I'm gonna be that dark horse here, and say I love the arena for this boss. It makes so much sense, and it works so well. What it is it has this big main area, and you can drop down into this water here that slows down the enemies, and you, admittedly, but it slows down the enemies. And if you're lucky, you can bait two of them down there, run back up real fast, fight the fuck out of the one that you left behind, and then repeat over and over and over. And it works really well, actually. I really don't like the enemies, though. I wish it were like 3 unique enemies instead of 3 like NPCs, because that's just fucking annoying. One's a really heavy hitter. He's a lot like Havel. I don't know why they didn't just name him Havel, honestly. One has a bow and arrow, and he's the easiest one to take down, and the one I usually take down first. And one has a bleed sword that is kind of in the middle of the two. He's not easy, he's not hard, he's just kind of a pain in the ass. They can also heal, because of course they can. And I don't like this boss that much, but I also don't hate it, surprisingly. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Difficulty's 80 out of 100. You know him, you hate him, the Godskin Duo. Which is actually like the Godskin Quartet, because there's 4 of them, or maybe even 5, I don't know, there's more than 2. This is just a very annoying boss, and I think it's been toned down a little bit. I'm not sure about that, but I feel like they are nowhere near as hard as they once were. But this is just the Godskin Apostle and the Godskin Noble at the exact same time, fighting you the exact same way they normally would if you were the only thing in the arena. They don't have any toned down AI or anything, as far as I know. They just are both going to run at you, and good fucking luck. They have all the normal attacks that I mentioned from the Godskin Noble and Apostle from earlier, and they get to do it together. There are several ways you can get around this boss and kind of cheese it, though, so I'll let you know about those real quick. You can throw sleep pots at them, and you can sleep one of them and then focus one down the entire time. What I like to do is I like to take a bleed build, and I actually didn't in this footage. I used a frost build, I think, and wail on one like with reckless abandonment. Just beat the shit out of them. If you can manage to just destroy one of them really fast, the fight will be cake. Because if one-on-one, it's not hard at all. Focus one, beat the shit out of him, let him aggro on you the most, and just keep attacking him. Do not let him fucking breathe. If you can do that, this fight isn't that hard. But that's way easier said than done, because at the beginning, they're both going to be on you immediately like white on rice. So good fucking luck. Difficulty's 82 out of 100. The third hardest boss in Bloodborne, and in my opinion, hardest boss in the main game, is Martyr Ligarius. This old wizard jackass here is nothing to scoff at. I thought this boss wasn't going to be that hard because I honestly never even heard about it until I got to this point in Bloodborne. But he actually ate my asshole, like, really badly. Martyr Ligarius starts out as a mage where he likes to, like, shoot skulls at you all over the fucking place, and they're really annoying to dodge. Try to stand behind the little spires on the arena, and that kind of helps a little bit. He has a lot of these skull moves, and they're really annoying. He has a big AoE where he, like, puts down, like, his sword, or whatever it is, I guess, and, like, makes this big, like, Malekith the Black Blade type, like, swirling thing. And then he also sometimes likes to throw his sword on the ground. I'm not sure if this is only in the second phase or if he does in the first phase too. I think it's only in the second phase. But immediately go and beat the shit out of that sword, because if you don't, you're going to be having homing swords just beelining for you this entire fight, and I'm pretty sure it's like nearly impossible if you don't break his sword immediately. His second phase is when this boss loses some points in difficulty, in my opinion. It's because he, like, gives up using magic. He's like, fuck this, I'm gonna use my hands. And then he, like, fucking tries to kill you with a scythe, and you can literally parry him at any point ever. He, like, I don't know what the timing is for this, but just fucking shoot him. He will get parried every single time. It's fucking great. And that's why I kind of like this boss. Martyr Ligarius is kind of fun, but he's no fucking pushover. He is a hard motherfucker. Difficulty is 83 out of 100. A lot of rankings for this one. Second hardest dragon boss in the series, 15th favorite Fromsoftware boss, and 24th hardest boss in the series. Dragon Lord Placidusax is a fucking monster, and man is he fucking cool. This is my favorite arena in the series too. Just, it's so beautiful. You're like in a big coliseum with like lightning and storms all in the background. Although you probably won't use the whole thing, it's so cool. I love this arena. Dragon Lord Placidusax is just a fucking monster of a dragon. Not like this pussy, like, fucking little dragons from earlier in Elden Ring. This guy's a dick. He starts out the fight barely even moving, really. He just kind of, like, waves his fucking, like, tail around. Sometimes he'll, like, try to bite you. He'll, like, blow fire all over the place. He really likes to blow fire all over the place. Sometimes he'll, like, use a little bit of lightning here and there, and you have to fucking run at all times or you're gonna get hit. But he starts out the fight not too hard, honestly, but he has a fucking giga-fuck ton of HP. What I like to do is I like to stand on his ass, and when he starts blowing fire, shift to the other side of his ass, and then when he starts trying to put the fire on that direction, shift to the other side of his ass once again. And then he won't be able to touch you. This fight isn't that hard until you get to, like, phase 2, where he, like, will disappear into the sky all fucking cinematic-like, and he's gonna, like, spawn a storm cloud in that he's in, and he's gonna fucking rush down onto the arena with this big lightning attack. It's gorgeous. It's such a beautiful fucking attack. And later on, he's going to even make that attack even stronger to wherever he hits the ground. It's going to leave a scorch mark that'll burn you if you stand on it. It's a really cool fucking fight. He has a fucking nuke attack where it, like, stops the music, which is so cool, by the way. He, like, puts a giant, like, lightning bolt in the ground and it'll, like, make a nuke sound, like fucking the MW2 nuke sound, like, legitimately. And that is your cue to run the fuck away, because that will probably kill you if you stand in it. He also, when he gets really, really low, he stops breathing fire and does these, like, massive lasers that, like, go across the screen all over the place and do so much fucking damage, too. Kind of like Madir earlier, but way cooler. I love Dragon Lord Placidusax. He is my second favorite dragon fight in the series, next to the fucking Divine Dragon all the way back when. But man, is he cinematic, and imagine if we got to fight him at his full strength. We might in the fucking DLC. Please, Fromsoftware. Difficulty is 83 out of 100. The big bad is here. The Nameless King, which was the bane of every first player's playthrough in Dark Souls 3 and has now become a laughingstock, is here at number 23, and I'm putting here for the posterity of being really hard the first time. The Nameless King starts out as the King of Storm on this dragon, which is a simple fight where I could probably beat it with my eyes closed, and a lot of people also could. He does a lot of damage, but he is the biggest wide open target on the fucking planet. It just is really annoying whenever he just keeps fucking flying away. He doesn't let you hit him, it's annoying. But when he starts breathing fire, that's your cue to just go hit him until he dies, pretty much. He is not hard as the King of Storm, but he might hit you once or twice, which might cause you to waste a few Estus, which is not good, because when he gets into Phase 2, the Nameless King, that's when he turns up the heat, like, a lot. This guy, which I just realized, I think he has the Great Serpent Spear from Elden Ring, which I never noticed until right now, is a fucking, like, disgusting human being, because he does so much damage, and he likes to delay his attacks a lot, and he likes to, like, hit the ground, and, like, wind will come up and, like, stagger you and hit you, and do fuck tons of damage, even though it's just wind, because tee-hee. And he becomes a monster of a fucking fight. It's very rhythmic, like a lot of bosses before this, but for Dark Souls 3, there's not a lot of rhythmic fights, honestly. But this is definitely one of them. And he does so much fucking damage. If you make a mistake and heal when you think you probably shouldn't, you're dead. He is such a good fucking job of just punishing your stupid ass for trying to heal in his face. If you try to do that, he's gonna fucking destroy you. There's no question about it. However, this boss, I don't know why, becomes very, very easy after the first time you beat him. I think I've met like several people that have played Dark Souls 3 that said that the Nameless King was a monster in their first playthrough, and then just became kind of a laughingstock in the second. But he is still a fucking disgusting human being, and probably one of the hardest bosses that some people will name if they haven't played Elden Ring. Difficulty is 83 out of 100. Love him or hate him, you have to admit he is iconic. Gwyn, Lord of Cinder, is the culmination of Dark Souls 1, and I think probably the pinnacle of storytelling in the entire series, in my opinion. Gwyn was this absolute mighty figure, this literal god, like god amongst gods that you hear about through this entire game of Dark Souls 1. And when you get to him, he's just pretty much an old man in a cavern losing his mind. This is such... And the music, I know I just cut my own sentence off, but holy shit, the music... It's so amazing. This is one of my favorite tracks, and Soul of Cinder has my favorite track in the series, and this is what kind of starts it and why it's my favorite track is because of this one. There is a reason I put him this high. Before, I would usually put him probably around like 60 difficulty or something like that. But recently, I didn't do it in this footage, but because I didn't want to drag the footage on too long. If you fight Gwyn without parrying, this fight is actually like one of the hardest in Dark Souls 1, and I didn't even think about that. This fight is bullshit if you don't parry. If you parry, it's not too bad. It still can be kind of hard with the timing, but if you don't parry at all, good fucking luck. It's like almost impossible. At least it feels like it to me. He's just so fucking aggro. For Dark Souls 1, he is like almost too aggro. And I don't know why they did it like that. I mean, I guess they did it to even show, even in his weakened form like this, he's still a fucking force to be reckoned with. But I don't know. I don't think he should be as fast as he is. And he's still one of the best bosses. And he's the best storytelling, like, boss in the series. And a lot of people would agree with that, I feel like. But Gwyn is just an amazing boss, and there is not much I would change about him other than making him a little slower. But other than that, I mean, there's not much to talk about. It's Gwyn. Everyone knows who Gwyn is. Difficulty is 84 out of 100. Here's a boss that a lot of people won't agree with me on. Gravelord Nito, like, actually pushes my shit in whenever I get to him, and I'm not sure I've ever beaten him on the first try of any playthrough, because he is just that much of a son of a bitch. I know a lot of people don't find him too hard, but I just, like, can't get the hang of this boss, no matter what I do. And I usually spend, no joke, like 8 to 10 tries every single time I get to this boss. I've beaten Dark Souls 1, I don't know how many times now, but I always take, like, at the very least, probably, like, 5 tries whenever I deal with this fucking boss. And the one in the back is fucking annoying, too, because you have to go through the whole darkness thing. I've learned the entire fucking Tomb of Giants at this point, like, the back of my hand, even without a fucking torch now at this point, because I've ran back through this entire thing so many times. And this boss just fucking sucks, honestly. As soon as you drop down, you're going to be put to half health immediately, pretty much, from fall damage. And if that's not bad enough, every once in a while, he's going to start off the entire fight by sticking a sword up your asshole from the ground. If you hear like a stock horror movie scream, just fucking start rolling as much as you can, because a sword is about to come out of the ground and impale you. There's also a shit ton of skeletons in this arena for some reason, because he's not hard enough on his own, I guess. And they will just instantly just start rolling at you. Apparently you can't aggro the big ones if you don't walk forward enough. But then you have to deal with like a shit ton of little guys for like 5 minutes while you wait for Nito to meander his way over to you. And then he does this giant like wave of darkness attack that's extremely fucking dangerous. It kills all the skeletons, and that's the only good thing about it. And it does like 9/10 of your health bar even if you block. So that's fucking great. I don't know why this fight is so hard for me. I can't ever decide if I want to go in here with a lot of mobility with the wood grain ring, or if I want to go in here with massive fucking armor to not be able to roll at all because I take so much damage in this fight. I just really don't like Nito. Difficulty's 85 out of 100. My second favorite boss in the entire series, with good reason, is Dragon Slayer Ornstein and Executioner Smo. This fight, I genuinely think, if you can suffer your ass through this fight and beat it, you can genuinely beat any single boss in the entire catalog. Because I think this was the point where if you kind of like meandered your way through Dark Souls 1 and you didn't really learn the game and you just kind of brute force it, you could get through it up until this point, I think. Because this is the point where you go and learn today, pretty much. I don't know how long I took on this boss, because I didn't stream my first time playing Dark Souls 1, but it had to have been like 50 times or something like that, 58 times. And each run back, my blood pressure spiked a little bit more. I remember my dog, who used to sleep in my room, would like genuinely start looking at me concerned, because I was getting so fucking upset. Because these two are like the best team of two enemies ever. There is not a better duo boss on the planet, I'm convinced. Because these two just complement each other so well. Ornstein is extremely fast. He will even like dash towards you with some stupid speed. And he has these lightning attacks, and he doesn't do a ton of damage, but he is there to piss you off and just poke you over and over until you die. Smo, on the other hand, is the slowest fucking person on the planet, but if you get hit by him, you're dead. So you have to balance both dealing with this little fly, annoying ass fly like flying around your head the entire time, and big ass over there with the giant hammer that will one-shot you. If you try to fight the fly for long enough, big ass is gonna be on you and he will kill you. If you try to focus only on the big guy, you're gonna have Ornstein just buzzing around your head, just poking you over and over and over until you die. It is such a perfect combination, and the only way you can split them up are these columns in the arena. And if you can manage to like get one stuck or near one, you can kind of poke one of them, hit a little bit, and run the fuck away. I could actually beat the first phase of this boss without getting touched. I actually did in this footage, I believe. I might have gotten hit at the very end, I'm not sure though. But you just cannot be greedy here. And bring a big ass weapon, because you're gonna get one hit. Don't try to hit him a couple times, you're gonna get punished immediately. Hit the one you want to take down first once, and then run away. And then wait for another opening. You have to wait for openings in this fight. You cannot brute force this fight. Once you get one of them down, the other one is going to absorb the other one. Ornstein's going to get either giant and do more damage, or Smo is going to get electric attacks, which doesn't really change much, honestly. So I usually kill Ornstein first to make it a little easier on myself. Smo also has these giant, like, butt crash attacks that have some weird range on it that do a ton of damage, too. And I don't know why this boss has just stuck with me the entire time. And I think it's stuck with a lot of people. Because it's Ornstein and Smo. Difficulty is 85 out of 100. I finally get to talk about it. This is the best boss in Sekiro, and genuinely my favorite character in any fucking Fromsoftware game ever. I love Owlfather so much. He's such a nice guy, and I can just tell the way he like stabs his son in the back, but I kind of like it whenever he dies. Like, I told you in the last one, where he's like, that's my boy, when you kill him. And this one, he's like, I was killed by my own son? I guess the feeling is not that unpleasant. Well, he's just such a stand-up dad. You can really tell. I think I have fought this boss more than any other boss in the entire FromSoftware series, but that's because Sekiro, you can fight any boss whenever you want. And I have played this boss to death. A lot. Owlfather is going to be like the owl that we talked about earlier, only he is a lot trickier and a lot more dangerous. If you try to stab him, by the way, he's gonna fucking Makiri counter you and then stab you back, which is fucking hilarious, by the way. He will do the same thing where he's gonna throw firecrackers you at the back right the fuck up immediately. He's gonna do a lot of the stuff where he like jumps on you, like throws shuriken down at you, and all that kind of stuff, the normal, you know how it is, it's Owl. However, when he gets to stage 2, that's when this fight becomes something magical. He pulls out the owl, which coincidentally, his name is also Owl. I wonder if they're connected. And this owl has the coolest mechanic of any FromSoftware boss ever. it like will genuinely try to fly where your camera is, so it blocks what you're looking at. And that's so fucking cool. Because it is purposely trying to fuck you up without like actually being like a nuisance on the playfield. It will just like try to fly into your camera so you can't see what Owl's doing to screw you up. He also does this huge like lunging attack that's really cool, where he's like tries to shove the sword into your face. Once again, just Makiri counter it. And my favorite move in the entire series also comes from this one, is when he pulls out the owl, makes it turn on fire, then throws it at you, and then immediately you have to Makiri counter him. It's such a cool fucking thing. When he throws the owl at you, just jump over it and then get ready to smash fucking circle or B or whatever thing you're on. It's just such an amazing boss, and I would love just to play this endlessly until the end of time. I just think it's such a great boss. It's not better than Ornstein and Smo or number 1. I almost just said what number 1 was on accident. But damn is it close. And I think the more I play it, the more it might become number 1 in the future. Just because of... The other ones kind of get boring after a while. Like Ornstein and Smo, I mean, it's amazing, but it's iconic. And that's the only reason it's number 2. But this one, I mean, is just simply a masterpiece of a fight. This is peak Sekiro. And there will be nothing better than this in any Sekiro game if another one even comes out. I guarantee it. And even in this footage, you can see me... I kind of did this as a challenge one. I never healed in this footage. I didn't use any shinobi tools except for the beginning to get the line, because it's kind of a cool line. And I didn't even hurt him anyway. And I also didn't even get hit except for a single shuriken, because I'm a fucking idiot in Phase 2. Difficulty is 85 out of 100. Dark Lurker is an incredibly hard and surprisingly incredibly good Dark Souls 2 boss. Those two usually don't mesh that well. The Dark Lurker is this guy or girl in a hood, and she's like an angel. It looks really cool, actually. I'm actually very impressed with the design of this boss. And it's actually pretty fucking hard. She has this like dark chakra blade-like thing that does a shit ton of damage, and she'll pull it out of nowhere when you least expect it. And she also has this big ass laser thing where it's basically like Nashandra's laser. If you get hit by it, I don't know what the fuck you're doing. You're probably asleep. And she has a couple other unique attacks with like dark explosions and stuff like that. If it were just that, though, this boss wouldn't be all that hard. However, she clones herself, kind of like Pontiff Sullivan does from earlier, only it's a lot harder and a lot more oppressive because they are constantly doing random ass attacks that don't really have much synergy, which usually would be a bad thing. But I kind of get it in this case because they just don't give you a chance to breathe. And it's an incredibly hard encounter. And just a side note here, I fucking hate the run-up to this boss because every time you have to kill like 3 invaders and you have to waste an effigy to fight this boss. So there's a chance you could actually just run out of attempts on this boss in a playthrough and you have to grind some fucking effigies, which would be so fun, I can imagine. Thankfully, I've never had to do that, and I was able to beat it relatively early on most playthroughs, but it can still be a fucking bitch. Difficulty's 85 out of 100. One of my least favorite dragon bosses in the series, and the hardest dragon boss in the series, believe it or not, is the Ancient Dragon in Dark Souls 2. This is just a painfully unfun boss. It has, I believe, the biggest health bar in the entire series, because you're going to be doing the same attack over and over for like a fucking hour. Because you're going to be... The only way I've ever learned to kill this boss is wait for him to land, hit his toes a bunch. He's going to go back up into the sky, blow fire into the ground, run at his tail when he blows fire onto the ground because you die if you don't, and then repeat over and over and over. This boss takes such a long time, and if you make a mistake, you're probably going to die. It's just a really annoying boss, and it's really hard and not in a fun way at all. So... Congrats, you won the title of hardest dragon boss in the series, but you are such a bitch that no one likes you. Difficulty is 86 out of 100. Hey look, another boss no one's gonna fucking agree with me on. The Demon Princes are a boss that I can never get the hang of. No matter how many times I do it, it still takes me like 10 or 11 tries every single time I get to this boss, and that's fucking really annoying. It's a duo boss that is not very fun, unfortunately. A lot of duo fights are, but this one I don't find fun at all. A lot of people like it, I don't. The Demon Princes are going to start out with 2 demons and they are going to be hyper aggro on you the entire time, pretty much. One is going to be constantly casting poison or toxic stuff at you the entire time, and the other one's going to be hyper aggro on you, and then they'll switch. At least if they never switched, you could focus on one of them long enough to go and then kill the other one. But they keep switching back and forth which one's aggro, and sometimes they're both aggro, sometimes neither of them are aggro, and it's just really fucking annoying, and I just don't like this boss whatsoever. Depending on the order you kill the Demon Prince is going to determine the second phase of this fight. It's a lot like Ornstein and Smough. If you kill the demon from below first, it's going to be a giant demon with a massive laser, and if you kill the demon in pain first, it's going to be a big demon with a massive fireball. I think the laser is a lot easier, but it's kind of based on preference, honestly. The second phase of this fight isn't that hard. It's just the first phase for me that's really difficult, because I can't juggle these two jackasses at the same time, because they are both very strong and both very hard to kill. And I can never get the hang of this. And yes, I find this boss a lot harder than Madir. Fight me. Difficulty is 86 out of 100.
Is this the blood? The blood of the dark soul.
Fun fact, I just recorded this entire entry already and I forgot my mic was off, so let's go again, I guess. Slave Knight Gale is a man of culture also, as he also likes executioner swords, as I used one in this, and yeah, he is using an executioner sword, it's just broken in half for some reason. And Gale is a monster, and everybody knows who Gale is because everyone just loves Gale. And I love him too. I don't think he's the best in the series, like a lot of people do. One of my mod really thinks he's the best in the series, but I don't think he's like the best. I still think he's amazing though. Gale is this monster of a man, and his first phase is pretty bestial. It's a lot like the Lost Sinner from like 2.5 hours ago at this point, where it's just really erratic movement, and surprisingly he doesn't actually do that much damage in the first phase. I didn't realize that until I rewatched this. He does a lot with one particular move, but most of his attacks don't do all that much damage. His second phase is triggered by the cutscene. We all know the cutscene. Yeah, give me the Dark Soul. And can someone tell me why in this cutscene, like, it goes, like, almost pitch black for a second and then, like, lights back up? I'm sure that's some cinematic thing, or it has something to do with the lore. I don't get it. Someone just tell me why that happened. And this is when he becomes very dangerous. He is very fast, and most of his attacks, his cape will trail behind his sword and leave a, like, lasting hitbox that ticks your health down a little bit, and gets really surprisingly a ton of damage if you just ignore it for a while, because it will just tick your health down without you realizing it. He also has a repeating crossbow like Guts from Berserk that will shoot many arrows at you and once again tick your health down before you realize it. This is a battle of attrition for sure. You're going to have to deal with like so much damage. You better have like a ton of Estus, 3 Embers, 5 Divine Blessings, and like 5 Life Gems. Those don't exist in this game to my disappointment. But he is a boss to be reckoned with for sure, and he scares the fuck out of me. His third phase isn't triggered by a cutscene, but it triggers with an attack where he like explodes into a bunch of like skulls, and they all like track to try to hit you, and they like never do. And lightning starts striking down too, for some reason. I don't know why that happens in like anime and like cinematics things. Like, why is lightning striking? It's cool, it looks cool, sure, but like why? And he also starts throwing like rings of light at you too, which I assume do a little bit of damage, but I'm not sure I've ever been hit by one, so just don't get hit by him, I guess. Gale is an amazing boss, and he deserves the final boss in the entire Dark Souls trilogy. And I think he does it pretty well. Difficulty is 90 out of 100.
It's been a long while, Morgoth. Long
and hard didst thou fight. Tarnished warrior, spurned by the grace of gold. Be assured the Elden Ring resteth close at hand. Alas, I am returned. To be granted audience once more. Upon my name as Godfrey, the first Elden Lord.
Yeah, this guy's pretty fitting of being an Elden Lord, honestly. Horlu is a monster, and I feel like they buffed this guy. I could be completely wrong, but my first playthrough, I annihilated this guy pretty easily. But every subsequent playthrough, I've actually gotten wrecked pretty hard by him every time, at least a couple times. Horlu, or Godfrey at the beginning, is actually like a monster. His first phase isn't like extremely hard. He uses this giant axe that he likes to shove into the ground and make giant shockwaves that do huge amounts of damage. If you see him like swing his axe over his head right before an attack, that is your cue to get the fuck away from him, because he's about to raise the entire ground up and like spew magma from the earth. And it does a lot of damage. And it really might catch you off guard, and if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, it'll just kill you. And every axe swing he does like fuck tons of damage too. When he gets to about 3/4 health, he's gonna start doing shockwaves whenever he does step attacks, which do a shit ton of damage, go figure. And you can't really do much about those. You can't block him, you kind of just gotta dodge him. And dodging him is kind of easier said than done, because they come at you really fast, and you gotta dodge like right into him, or you're gonna get fucking tagged by it, and he's gonna be on you immediately right after. This is a lot like Godfrey, the first Elden Lord fight from earlier. You want to stay really close to him if you can, until he does those axe swings. When he gets to phase 2, it's a little bit different. He becomes a wrestler for some reason, and he has like the most bombastic attacks I've ever seen from a Fromsoftware boss. He'll like grab you, throw you in the air, and then like fucking pile drive you onto the ground. It's honestly really funny. And those attacks do way too much damage, and they can easily just RKO you and just it'd be over instantly. It's fantastic. And then when he gets to about 1/4 health, remember all those shockwaves from earlier, he's going to start doing it in this phase, which it seems like he does them a lot more in this phase. And you're going to have to dodge all of those as well. Just, if you get hit, it's like being hit by like a semi-truck that's made of fire. It just does so much damage, and there's like not much you can do about it other than get the fuck away from him if you're in the second phase, and stay right on him if you're in the first. It's not really a battle of attrition, because the fight's going to be over pretty fast. Either you're going to be in the dirt or he's going to be in the dirt, and it's going to be fast. Difficulty is 91 out of 100. Hume Knight is my favorite Dark Souls 2 boss, and the second hardest Dark Souls 2 boss at that. This guy is really fucking cool. He has one of the most iconic swords in the game with the Fume Ultra Greatsword, and he uses that thing like it's like a little butter knife. He swings it around so hard. This boss also has a little bit of an Easter egg. If you run in here with all of Velstat's armor, which is what I'm actually doing in this playthrough, it becomes a lot harder, because it's always in his second phase instead of only going into a second phase at half health, which is a cool little Easter egg and cool little lore tidbit, because the Fume Knight really hates Velstat apparently, for some reason. His first phase is generally not too bad. You just gotta be really fast on the rolls, and you cannot be greedy. You have to heal after you get a dodge in. You cannot heal, try and get greedy there. Like if you were really far away from him, he'll catch up and whack you with that fucking thing, and it will do a ton of damage. You gotta be really light on your feet here and roll through every single attack, because it's gonna chunk your health bar no matter how much you have if you get hit by any of this guy's attacks. He's a big AoE attack too in phase 2, where like this is like a really cool attack where like spawns like little flame balls that like go in like a clockwise motion, and you have to like predict where they're gonna be, and you have to like walk through the gaps. It's a really cool move. I really enjoy it. It has a really cool sound effect too. I don't know what it is, but I like it a lot. His second phase also has where he just puts away that little sword of his, and he uses the Ultra Great Sword, and he like sets it on fire, and it has unbelievable range, like stupid range. And you have to roll through everything really fast, or you're gonna get fucking tagged by it. He's in this pretty cool arena of like ash and stuff, and before you walk into this fight, Make sure to use all your fume rods and the statues up to the arena, because if you don't, this fight is near impossible, I'm pretty sure, because he just gets healed constantly from them, and it does, and like, more than you could probably output with a reasonable amount of damage. He's just a really cool boss, and the epitome of Dark Souls 2's combat. I love it. Difficulty is 91 out of 100. An amazing boss that I would normally put in the top 25, but there are two attacks specifically that we will get into that I really can't stand that makes me dislike this boss a little bit. I still love this boss. The Demon of Hatred is an extremely hard boss in Sekiro, and you know what they say about this boss. This is not my words, by the way. Everyone fucking says this on the internet. The Demon of Hatred is a Bloodborne boss in Sekiro, and that does not work at all. It's incredibly hard. It's a lot like the Guardian Ape, as in you're not going to be trying to break its posture, you're going to be trying to kill it. But then they made it hard on top of that, which makes an extremely difficult boss. And it is fantastic, and spoilers, I guess. This is the sculptor from the beginning of the game. He gets so pissed off, I guess, that he turns into a demon, I guess. Sekiro's more of a grounded-in reality game than every other FromSoft game. How the fuck did that happen? How did he turn into a demon, exactly? Did he just get so angry that he just, like, died, I guess? I don't know how it works. And this was predicted, I guess, like 50 years ago by Ishin, but whatever. The Demon of Hatred is a monstrosity. And if you want an easier time with this boss, get the Malcontent, which is I believe, the finger of the Demon of Hatred's lover, I think, lore-wise, and it pisses him off and makes him sad and stuns him for a few seconds. So good luck going through the entire game like 5 times trying to get the damn thing. But it makes this fight significantly easy. The first phase, he's going to have all of his normal attacks that we're going to talk about. He has just some normal ones where he, like, swipes the ground. He has fire damage a lot, so that's unique. Honestly, I'm not sure many enemies in Sekiro that do fire damage, but he definitely does them. He has an attack where he's going to jump really high into the sky, and if you don't jump and grapple to him immediately, it will kill you. He also has a move that it's unblockable. Almost all of his unblockables are one-shot kills, like, at any health, so good luck. You have to be ready for it. Especially one where he, like, digs his hand in the ground and, like, rushes at you. If it hits you, it kills you. Like, there's a point in this video where, like, it just straight kills me with full health. I'm sure if you have, like, a fuck ton of health, it won't kill you. But it does so much that if you have any reasonable amount of health for the game, you're just gonna fucking die. Which is awesome. His second phase is a little bit harder. He starts, like, throwing fire and stuff, which also is a one-shot kill. Very fun. He also has, like, a dance where he, like, fires, like, sculptures at you. And then he strikes a Buddha pose at the end, and that can be really dangerous if you just don't run clockwise or counterclockwise around him. It's pretty easy to dodge, just don't get scared when you see a bunch of random-ass statues on fire flying at you. His third phase is when it gets really hard, honestly. He has all those attacks, and he can set a ring of fire around you, so you can't move, like, anywhere, and you have to be right up on him, and it'd be super fucking dangerous. He also does, like, this weird tail whip attack that you have to jump over his fucking tail a bunch, and that can be also really dangerous. This boss is a fucking disgusting display of what Sekiro can be capable of if the developers really want to be assholes about it. And they did it really well, and it's also really fun. Difficulty's 92 out of 100. Radagon of the Golden Order is an amazing boss, and honestly, I think this is the most hype opening cutscene to a boss in the entire franchise. There are better ones that are like in the middle of fights for like phase 2, such as like Frida's phase 2, Ludwig's phase 2, Melania's phase 2. I wonder where those 3 bosses are, by the way. But I think this is by far the best opening cutscene to a boss, because it is just so hype with the fucking menu music that's rehashed playing, and then like the actual like Elden Ring like shining in his chest. It's so cool. I fucking love Radagon, and if this were the final boss, I would have been so much happier, but it's technically not the final boss. It should have been. I think this should have been the final boss, just with way more fucking health. Something I also really enjoy about Elden Ring is in Dark Souls, there is a very clear despair and like letting go type vibe to it. Of course, there's hope in it, but you have to like really search for it. However, in Elden Ring, and this goes with the music for Radagon perfectly, there is a very clear message of hope and triumph, and I think it's an amazing boss for that. Now to actually talk about the boss, because I've been rambling about who knows what for how long now. Radagon is a pure fucking light damage motherfucker. He also does physical with his hammer, but I feel like I don't really get hit by his hammer much. I usually just get tagged by all the fucking light damage he does. So if you have a talisman that like negates holy damage, put it on, because you're gonna need it for these next 2 fights. Yeah, there's another fight after this one. Good luck. And I think it's also really cool that the final boss does holy damage instead of like fire or lightning or like some other element, because holy is usually seen as like a holy good thing. Holy, get it? Like WHOL. Anyway, I think it's a fantastic like thing. I don't know why. I just really like Radagon. He has some normal moves where he will like slam his hammer into you, and you have to like do some wonky like fucking backups and like rolling into it and everything like that. He has a move where he's gonna like summon a rune arc above him, and then he's gonna strike the ground 3 times really fast. I know this is a really easy move to like fucking get around and do massive damage on, but I suck at dodging it, and I always get hit by it, and then I just die for it, so I just kind of stay away from it and hope it doesn't hit me. He also will like throw little like light darts at you that like do a little bit of damage, but they tick your health down real fast, so be careful not to just ignore them, because they definitely do damage. It just doesn't seem like it in the moment. He also will like start... He also has a really cool move where he like jumps into the air with the hammer and like holds it really high and like slams it into the ground really hard. And that's my favorite move of his. It's that absolutely gorgeous move, and I just fucking love it. The hard part of this fight, I think, comes from when he goes into like phase 2, which doesn't have a cutscene or anything. It just, when he starts teleporting, it just is so frequent that like it'll just keep going on and on and on, and you'll just miss a bunch. And whenever he teleports, it does damage to you too, and he like fucking spams it. He like does fucking Shisui the body flicker of just like fucking just teleporting all around, so you can't hit him, and it does damage to you, and it gets really frustrating. However, I can't really fault the boss too bad for that. Like I said, I really wish this was the final boss, but I think it is a fantastic boss. Difficulty is 93 out of 100. Hey, we made it to the top 10. Give everyone a round of applause for making it this far if you made it this far. And yes, I think that Ishin Ashina is way harder than Ishin the Sword Saint, because is in a very tiny room, and he has some actual just bullshit attacks. He is basically the first phase of Ishin the Sword Saint, only he has some really unique attacks. His first phase is literally just cake. You can pretty much beat it without getting hit. Ignore the fact that I did in this footage. But his second phase is just so oppressive and stupid that it's way harder. First things first, he sometimes can just decide to not get hit. And I don't mean like it doesn't register, like he just dodges it. It doesn't matter when you do it. Sometimes he'll just dodge your fucking hit. Because fuck you. If that happens, you gotta immediately back up or you're gonna just die. Which is fantastic. Great job Fromsoftware. I love that about this boss. Number 2 is he has a bunch of fire attacks, and when you're in this little tiny space, they almost always are right on you. He has one where he like launches it across the room. You have to jump, because even if you're out of the hitbox on the floor, it'll still hit you sometimes for some reason, because fuck you, I guess. One of them, if he does the Ichimonji double in the first phase, you can easily block it. In the second phase, it just will straight insta-kill you, because he blows fire out. So it's meant to catch you off guard. If you see him start to do the Ichimonji double, just run the fuck away, because you'll die if you try to block it. And he also has like a grab attack that insta-kills you pretty much. It doesn't actually insta-kill you. It gets you down to like 1 HP, which is extremely dangerous. And then he also has an attack where he like does this like weird little like pose, and then fire columns are from like sprout from where fire on the floor, If you see him do this like little pose thing, just stand in a part of the room that is not already on fire and you won't get hit. However, he's going to follow it up by an extremely fast, like, waterfowl dance type attack, so be ready to block everything immediately. And I just feel like I die to just bullshit things on this all the time. I think this is the hardest boss on Sekiro, unironically. Difficulty's 94 out of 100.
Sekiro, it was not to be.
The hardest and one of the best Dark Souls 2 boss is Sir Alan. This guy is a Dark Souls 3 boss in Dark Souls 2, and that I mean that as a compliment genuinely, because it is a fantastic boss. Sir Alan, I believe, has the most aggressive AI in the entire series, probably. And by that, I mean, if you do not attack him when he is not just finishing an attack, it will not work and he will stop you and hit you. You have to be extremely cautious here, and this is an extremely like time-based one. You can't try to get greedy, you can't try to get like 2 or 3 hits in every time you block an attack or dodge an attack. It doesn't work, he'll kill you. You have to wait for an attack, dodge, then hit. If you're hurt, heal in the time after you dodge. You either have to heal or attack in the split second that he finishes an attack, and then you have to wait for another attack. If he staggers, go ahead, hit him a couple times, whatever. He has a move as well. If he's far across the arena, he can do this really long lunge at you, and you have to time it absolutely perfectly, or you will get tagged by it, and it will do half your health bar. He also can parry you, apparently. I've seen that a couple times on YouTube. I've never had it, I don't think. But apparently that can happen. I don't know what the stipulation for that one is, but it does happen. He also can coat his Odaichi in darkness, and don't let him hit you, especially then, because he buffs his attacks then, and it makes everything a lot harder. Sir Alan is a fantastic boss, and the boss music here is also fantastic. Once again, for Dark Souls 2, this music is, like, beautiful. And also, why is the floor so shiny? That's all I have to say about that boss. Difficulty's 95 out of 100.
You were at my side all along. My true mentor, my guiding moonlight.
There's not really a feeling quite like fighting Ludwig the Holy Blade or Ludwig the Accursed. It's not like you're being hunted, really, like when you're fighting Gascoigne, and it doesn't feel like you're fighting like a god, like when you're fighting Radagon. It's just a really different feeling. He's gonna start out the fight as this horse, beast, guy, and he is a rambunctious little pony here. When he runs into you, it's going to do almost your entire health bar. You can tell when he's about to run into you if you see his bad breath. If you see, like, brown breath coming out of him, be sure to, like, step to the side and stuff. He has a really wonky hitbox, too, with a lot of his attacks, and it's really hard to tell what he's about to do. If he jumps straight up into the air, I don't really know what to do, but my strat for this is literally just run away as far as I can from where he jumped up, and usually it misses. It's an imposing fight, for sure. His second phase, his second form, has him using the Moonlight Greatsword. Oh, that's where it is in this game. Where he, like, shoves it into the ground, he, like, does huge, like, shockwaves and stuff like that. If you see him about to do an AoE, step the fuck away from him, because it does a ton of HP. He, however, staggers feels like a lot more in stage 2. That could just be me. And also, if you have any enchantments on your weapon that do more damage to beasts, it weirdly enough won't affect him in his second phase as it would in his first, because I guess he's not a beast anymore. Ludwig is a very unique boss, and I think everybody loves Ludwig. It's just a really nice boss, which I think has, like, one of the greatest, like, crescendos. That's a big word for me, by the way. Are you happy with me? In the entire series, and this music, like, I don't know how to describe it other than I would not be surprised if this was the battle music when I would, like, fight the real-life devil, I feel like. Because it is so, like, grandiose and evil sounding. Like, there's not a track like it in any Fromsoftware game. It's not my favorite track, but it is probably the most unique one, and in a very, very good way. Also, another thing that I really like about this fight is Bloodborne is stuck at 30 FPS on the PS4, and he has a very specific attack. If it looks like he's about to do an AoE, but he doesn't, and he just does a small shockwave, he's about to like open up a rift in space. I like to call this attack the because it just lags your game so hard, and I find it very funny that it does that, because Bloodborne just can't handle fucking Ludwig. Difficulty is 96 out of 100. Malekith the Black Blade, aka Garak, aka Beast Clergyman, aka Let Me Do It For You, sorry, is a fucking disgusting monster of a boss. He's kind of cute though, because he's a dog, and I like dogs, so that's okay. He's going to start the fight as the Beast Clergyman, which in my opinion, weirdly enough, I find this first phase way harder than the second, because he just doesn't let you get a hit in, really, and he uses a lot of beast sorceries that just do so much damage that I can't fucking dodge sometimes. When he, like, throws his claws in the ground, it's, like, really hard to dodge him, especially when he does the Garak's Beast Claw, which is when he does the big AoE one that, like, spreads out from him, and there's, like, a big circle of them. I'm really bad at dodging it. He also does fuck tons of damage, and he runs at you immediately, and there's a good chance you might get knocked off the stage, like, frame 1, because he runs at you so fast and will hit you. His second phase is where everyone raves about how amazing this boss is. I really don't care. It's kind of cool, I guess. It's called Malekith the Black Blade, where he uses the Destined Death Blade or something. I don't know. Who knows the lore of this game anymore. And he can do giant red shockwaves that not only hurt you, but reduce your max health. So that makes this boss a fucking force to be reckoned with. And he is unbelievably fast, and he jumps through the air, does shockwaves in the air. It looks really fucking cool. He also has a couple different, like, attacks depending on how far away you are from him. One of which, if you're really close on him, he explodes the sword when he lands on it. And if you're kind of far away, he'll do, like, a big, like, waterfowl dance, like, red move that, like, does a bunch of slashers at once that also all reduce your health. This boss just does a fuck ton of damage. However, the problem is it doesn't last long. You're either going to be dead in, like, 0.5 seconds, or you're going to beat him in probably, like, 2 minutes. It depends on how fast you are, but generally this fight is pretty fast. Also, just to use this as a segue, kinda, this is what happened to me once when I was fighting Malekith. This was like a couple months ago when I was doing my own playthrough, and I was recording all the bosses for my own. This wasn't the same playthrough, but this happened to me, and because Malekith was so hard that my PC just told me to give up. There is no way that just fucking happened. I'm going to kill myself. Yeah, that's Malekith, alright. Difficulty is 97 out of 100. By far the hardest Dark Souls 1 boss is Manus, Father of the Abyss. This guy moves way too fucking fast for this game. And he also moves way too fucking fast for how big he is. The problem with this fight isn't you don't have enough healing. The problem is you don't have a time to heal. If you try to heal at any point other than the time when he is, like, in the middle of a combo, he will catch up to you and fucking rail you. He will not let you get a heal off. That alone makes this fight very, very hard. Most of his attacks also do a good amount of damage, and also if you don't have a very specific item, all of his dark magic is, like, very, very likely to hit you, and it's, like, does, like, massive amounts of damage. It does oodles of damage, if you will. He also has this extendable arm, which is very strange, that just for some reason has some weird range on it that sometimes it doesn't look like it's going to hit you, and it 100% does. This boss reminds me a lot of the Demon of Hatred in a weird way, but way harder. Difficulty is 97 out of 100. Moog, Lord of Blood, comes in at number 5, Burger King foot lettuce, and for a good reason. His first phase is literally just Moog the Omen from way earlier, only every once in a while he's going to put his staff or trident or whatever in the sky, and he's going to count down from 3 in Latin. Once he does that, he is going to go into his phase 2, which is way, way harder. If you don't have a very specific crystal tier, he is going to heal 3 times and take all of that health from you. And even if you have the tier, it just won't take the health from you, it'll just heal him 3 times. So basically, he has 1.5 health bars, pretty much, so you get to deal with that. And he becomes unbelievably fast. Like, way too much for his size, pretty much. He's a big fucking dude. He's an omen, of course. And he is really fast. And he has wings now, for some reason. He likes to spread blood all over the arena, and unlike earlier, it's gonna like stay for a long time, so just be careful where you're walking, because you might just get ticked down by random bleed damage that'll just kill you, because that's fun. Also now, in this phase, when he tries to stab you with his trident from earlier, he can like spread blood out from it too. He can just spread blood with like every attack, it feels like. It's very hard to get away from the blood. I really enjoy this boss, not for necessarily the boss itself, but for the lore. I really like Moog, he's really cool. And when he goes knee heal, you know, that part, that's such a fucking cool part. I really like Moog, and I honestly hope we get some more lore on him, because he's kind of a cool character. Completely evil, don't get me wrong, but a cool character nonetheless. Difficulty's 97 out of 100. The former king of Fromsoftware catalog for difficulty, the Orphan of Kos, or at least that's what a lot of people thought. I think there's one more harder than this before Elden Ring, but whatever. The Orphan of Kos is a force to be reckoned with, and undoubtedly the hardest boss in Bloodborne. I love this guy's arena so much. It's probably like one of my favorite arenas as well, because it's like on a beach, and I can count the amount of times you fight an enemy on the beach in Fromsoftware games on 2 fingers. Wait a minute. 2 fingers. And it's dark and gloomy and raining, and it's a really beautiful setting. His first phase is immediately extremely aggressive, and if you go anywhere near him, he's going to be on you, like, immediately. The way I always deal with this boss is I have a weapon that hits really fast, such as the Stake Driver. I'm telling you guys it's a god tier weapon, just saying. And then I pop a Beast Blood pellet and then just wail on him. He'll stagger a lot, and you'll build so much damage up from the Beast Blood pellet. But Joey, you take extra damage. I don't care. Sometimes he like grabs like a pustule or something, I don't know what it is, off of like his axe umbilical cord thing. I really don't know what it is, and it's gross, but whatever. And he throws it at you, and it's like a big bomb, and it does a fuck ton of damage. And that honestly is probably my least favorite move phase, because I like never can dodge it correctly. It does so much fucking damage, and you can't really do much about it. The first phase is extremely aggressive, but like it's manageable kinda. Like you can easily like sidestep all of his stuff and get around him. It's not like impossible. When he gets to his second phase, that's when like everything goes out the window. He screams, sprouts wings or a scarf or something. I don't know. He's like Laharl, I guess. And he becomes even more aggressive and has more attacks and does more damage, because the first phase wasn't hard enough, I guess. He also will now throw like lots of pustules all over the place that'll explode everywhere, or jump in the air and throw pustules. It's great. He also sometimes screams, and if you see him screaming, just get the fuck away from him, the giant corpse of Kos, which is the big like squid thing in the middle of the arena, because lightning will strike it and it'll spread out from there, but if you're far enough away, it won't spread to you and you'll be fine. I don't think I've ever been hit by it, honestly. Maybe once, but I'm assuming it does lots of damage, and you don't want to be caught in that. Honestly, this fight, there's a lot of luck, and you just gotta get really lucky, and you gotta wail on him and kill him as fast as you can, because if you stay in that fight, it's gonna be a battle of attrition, and you'll lose almost undoubtedly. Difficulty is 97 out of 100. My favorite boss in From Software's extensive catalog, if you hear a dog barking, there's some jackass outside, sorry. And there is not even a boss that even slightly comes close, honestly. ONS used to be pretty close, but now that I thought about it, Sister Frida is just one of the best bosses ever. I love Sister Frida. Her first phase is pretty simple, and the first time I fought this boss, I thought the first phase was the only phase because I was having such trouble with it. But honestly, nowadays, it's not hard at all. She has this big ice scythe, and she will basically lunge at you. She will do a ton of ice attacks while she, like, spreads it on the ground. She also can jump behind you and turn invisible. If you see this happen, immediately look behind you, and you'll see her land, and you'll see exactly where she is when she was invisible. If you get behind her, you can get a free backstab here, and it does a lot of damage. You can also listen for it, I guess, which is what I tried to do originally, but almost always it is directly behind you where she lands when she turns invisible. Get behind her, do a huge backstab, and then a follow-up. You can get a whole ton of damage done that way. She also has an unbelievably hard-to-dodge grab, where she, like, drags the scythe on the ground, and I don't really know how to dodge it. I kind of just dodge at the very end as far as I can tell, and I usually get out of it, but if it hits you, it's going to take, like, a ton of health, like, a massive amount. Her second phase is, honestly, I might think the hardest, honestly, weirdly enough. A lot of people think the third phase is, but I kind of like the second phase. The second phase is Father Arundel's going to break out of his chair, or I guess just break out of the bindings on the chair and the floor, and he's going to start hitting you with this giant bowl of fire soup Estus stuff. I don't know what it is. And it does a lot of fucking damage. And Frida's going to be there too, doing pretty much the exact same stuff as the first phase. So you get to choose your poison here. They do share a health bar, thankfully. If they didn't, this would be a nearly impossible fight, I feel like. And sometimes Frida will just start healing Father Arundel. My strat here is to just wail on Father Arundel. When Frida casts ice, just run away and then come back and attack Father Arundel again. Usually he'll get staggered, and you can do a fuck ton of damage with a follow-up to a stagger. And that's usually how I end the second phase, but it is really hard, and it's very hard to manage both of them at the same time. The third phase is what people usually talk about when they're talking about Sister Frida. She gains a second scythe of black fire, and she becomes an unbelievably fast boss. A boss that is way too fast for this game. Sometimes you can actually, like, dodge an entire combo over, then go in for a hit, because that's usually what you do as soon as someone finishes a combo, and she'll already be in another combo and just kill you, because she is that fucking fast. A lot of people say she's too fast. I don't think she's, like, too fast. I think she's a really good speed, but she is, like, really fast for Dark Souls 3, like, an unbelievable amount. She also has this, like, unbelievably gorgeous move where she, like, spirals up into the sky with black fire and then does a huge crash down. I don't know how to fucking dodge that one. I just try to get away from it, and then when the black fire gets near me, I dodge roll through it, and 90% of the time I get clipped by it, but it's not that big of a deal. The problem with this fight is it is so unbelievably long that you're going to need a ton of Estus, and an Ember, and a lot of probably Divine Blessings, which you can only hold one anyway, so fuck you. It's basically, this fight is, are you going to run out of healing items first, or is she going to die first? And it's going to be a long fight. But man, is it, in my opinion, the perfect From Software fight. Difficulty's 98 out of 100. The Elden Beast is the final boss of Elden Ring, and the second hardest boss in the entire catalog, in my opinion. A lot of people might disagree with me, but I think this boss is unbelievably stupid. But I hate how annoying it is. It is stupid hard, and, like, not in the fun way. You are immediately thrust into this fight right after you fight Radagon, you know, that guy from a while ago, and you don't get any more healing or anything else. And if you lose here, you gotta refight Radagon anyway, so you're gonna get good at Radagon, probably. But you're probably always going to be coming into this fight with not everything you could have. You're gonna be at a disadvantage in this fight no matter what you do, which is fucking stupid. And he has some really bullshit attacks too, we'll get into those. But he does have some normal attacks too that we'll also get into. He has a normal one where he blows fire from his mouth, I guess. And if you're not directly in front of him, you should be okay. He can do a big, like, sword combo, which is what you want him to do because you can get so many hits in right after that one if you're right on him. He can do one where he flies into the sky and spawns a giant Elden Ring. Wow. And you just have to jump over it, and honestly, that one's not too big of a deal. Or he has one where if he's far away, he can like do giant slashes with his sword that make giant holy damage. He also has one where he can grab you and spawn you on a rune arc, and then he's going to impale you, like Jesus Christ, with a bunch of light things. With a bunch of light shards, I guess. This is why you want holy damage protection for this fight. Now, you might be saying, okay, that's a lot of attacks, but it doesn't sound too hard. Well, this entire time he's going to be chaining those attacks together, and he is going to be running away the entire time he's doing half of them. So it's almost impossible to catch up to him to do almost any damage. And he has a fuck ton of health, because fuck you, I guess. He doesn't really have a second phase per se, but he kind of gains a couple new attacks. One, he like grabs his sword and like spawns a bunch of Elden stars off of it, which is by far the most bullshit attack in the entire catalog, because there is absolutely no dodging it, pretty much. If it is near you, you're going to be tagged over and over and over by it. You just got to run away from it. And even if you do, it's probably still going to run into you. And once again, you have a bunch of shit getting launched at you the entire time from other attacks for this fight. So you got to deal with that too. He also has one where he like increases the Elden Ring attack, where he goes in the sky and he spawns 3 rings. So you got to jump over one, then you got to jump over another, and then jump over the third one in quick succession. That one's not too bad, honestly, but it does hurt if you get caught in it. He also has a nuke attack that does fuck tons of damage, like Placidus axe earlier. He just does a fuck ton of damage, and it's almost undodgeable, some of them, which is great, and I just really dislike this boss. But it is unbelievably hard, so it earns the spot. Difficulty is 99 out of 100. Hey, I know what you did. You just skipped to the final part of the video to see what number 1 was. Fuck off. Go watch the rest of it. Melania, Goddess of Rot, is unsurprisingly number 1 on this list. She is undoubtedly the hardest boss in all of Fromsoftware. Now, her first phase is going to be pretty normal. She's going to be extremely fast like Frida, but probably a little bit slower. And she can be knocked out of her poise pretty easily, surprisingly. However, every attack she does is going to take like a good chunk of your health bar off. She has one where she like swipes real fast, like swipe, 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 like right in your face. That does a fuck ton of damage. She can sometimes just kick you, because I guess that happens. She can like do a giant grab that does like almost your entire health bar. And everything does a shit ton of damage, unsurprisingly. Now, all of that sounds all good and dandy, and you'd be like, yeah, that's probably the hardest boss in the series. Well, there's all that and more, because she heals from every single attack she hits you with, which is unbelievable, because why? She also has a infamous move called the Waterfowl Dance, where she's going to jump up into the sky, put her one leg in the air, and you're going to know, because you're going to get real used to it, and she's going to rush you with a flurry of attacks that are almost unblockable. I think if you have a specific great shield you can, if I remember correctly, but you're not going to have it, probably. You're going to want to run away from it as far as you can to dodge the first volley. When she starts doing the second volley, roll into it and it'll miss because of the timing. And then the third volley, you're going to want to turn around immediately and then roll again, and you should dodge the entire thing. This is how I do it. Also, she is extremely weak to bleed, frost, and you can also stagger out of her stuff. So if she gets in the air and you're right next to her and you're not prepared to dodge the Waterfowl Dance, you might want to go for a Hail Mary and try to knock her out of the sky with a status ailment. If you have frost, you might be able to frost her. If you have bleed, you might be able to bleed her. And if you have neither of those, maybe you'll get lucky and you can break her stance and she'll fall down. This is extremely rare. However, as you see in this clip right here, one time, I believe this was 3 playthroughs ago, I frosted her, then bled her, and then knocked her out of her stance immediately after, and just did a huge 1-2-3 combo on her, and it was fantastic. I just love that clip because it's kind of funny. Her second phase is when things get really hard. Instead of being kind of passive like her first phase, she is always on you in this phase. And most of her attacks just do Scarlet Rot damage, which, if you know this game, that's basically toxic. So she heals from every single attack, she does toxic, she's extremely aggressive, and she does fuck tons of damage. Good luck. She also can still do Waterfowl Dance in this one, and she also has like a Vanitas type move where she like makes a bunch of clones of herself in the air that all rush down and try to stab you, and then she finishes it off with an extremely long range lunge. So you know this boss. I don't really have to explain it. This is unbelievably hard, and also I think this boss is fantastic. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I still like it a lot. Difficulty's 100 out of 100. Stick around. I'm going to do a little bit of post-video commentary, and I'll see you guys next time if this is the last one. This is March 11th. So that's how long this took to record, by the way.
Extraordinary. The mark of a true lord.
Hey, welcome to the post-video commentary here. This isn't scripted, so although the the entire video didn't seem like it was very coherent, probably, this is going to be even probably less coherent because this isn't even scripted, so I'm just kind of talking here. This video took over 2 months to make, and as you can see, this is all my... Oh, hold on. Vegas is a great program. Give it a second. These are all the, like, files I used to make this video. As you can see, I have all the photos up there. I have all of the bosses. I have all of the commentaries. I just have a lot of stuff. I have a whole folder of this stuff right here, as you see from my videos folder. I have all the Bloodborne bosses. I have all the Dark Souls bosses. 1, 2, 3, all of them. I have all the Demon Souls bosses. I have all the Elden Ring bosses. From here, don't ask why it's called Yi, just is. And everything like that. I have been doing this video for a long time. Sekiro bosses, obviously. And I've been working on it a very long time. And this is just me finally finishing it. I did usually like 5 to 10 entries a day, speaking wise. I started recording like the actual boss footages, like I don't even know how long ago. I want to say Dark Souls 1 was probably the first one I did. And this was, when was this made? Is there a way to check that? Silent Demon was made August 26th, 2022. So that's a long time ago. What else? That might not be the earliest one. Dark Souls 3, when did I make the... What's an early boss in Dark Souls 3? The Pursuer. I recorded this clip August 18th, 2022. So it's been a long time coming. So I've just been working on this as much as I could, and it's taken a while. And I'm glad it's kind of how it turned out. As you see, here's the timeline of events here, if Vegas would work, because obviously it is taking a long time, because that's what Vegas does. As you can see here, let me scroll out a little bit here. This is an extremely long timeline of events right here, of everything. Like, I've started recording this a long time ago. Like, right here, this is when I recorded the... What is this? Flying Dragon Grail at entry 156. I've been doing a lot of it. And also, let me scroll this over real quick. This is the list I was making when I did all of this. And I have all the scores and everything here of every single boss from every single Fromsoftware game. I actually kind of enjoyed making this. I like making lists like this. I forgot Horlu in this. Excuse that. It's all color-coded and everything like that. Everything's all there. And it just took me a long time. And I appreciate anybody that watched this whole thing. I'm not sure anyone will, but I really appreciate it. And I hope to see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.